I think it's frivolous and inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, because the American government is going to do what it's going to do, and Israel is going to do what it's going to do, regardless of whatever people say on the ground. And that the overarching consensus view on the Palestinian front, due to things like this being...
I wish you just would, like, I think all you would have needed to say is, like, just look at what just happened right now. You said you wanted to compare and contrast really bad takes, in fairness. And the 3 bad takes that you showed us on one side were all 3 politicians and lawmakers for the largest military force known to human existence. The others were podcasters and people at rallies, you know? Alright, get the whizzes on. I want to see where it's going.
I mean, like, where they would put a pencil in your hair to see if you were... how non-white you were. If the pencil stuck, you were considered non-white, not allowed to go into certain places. Now, all of that was violent. The maintenance of that was violent. When all was said and done, Nelson Mandela realized that violent reaction was demanded from the people on the ground, demanded from the emancipatory forces, demanded from the 90% black people that comprised the South African population. He was jailed. He went to Algeria first. He went to Ethiopia. He talked to revolutionaries. He
Depressed
talked to
Progressive,
Marxists.
thank you so much for the very generous
he came back to
1,000
Africa.
biddies.
He was immediately South Africa. He was jailed.
Genuinely appreciate it.
Time and time
Very
again,
generous of you.
the government demanded that he denounce the violence. He said, "How can I talk to you on equal conditions when I am chained? How can you put my freedom as a talking point, as a way to get me to denounce violence, when you have made no efforts you've made no conciliatory efforts. You've made no efforts in understanding the position of people that you have subjugated, that you have forced to exist in these apartheid conditions." At the end of the day, nobody remembers the violence of the ANC forces, because the violence of the apartheid regime was all too great, was significant, was more significant than the violence that the horrifying violence, even those that, of course, civilians were subjected to. Because if I were to ask you today, what's worse, the violence towards the civilians in apartheid South Africa or the violence of the apartheid regime, you would say the violence of the apartheid regime, right?
I don't know. Did they mass murder 1,500 civilians?
I don't know the exact civilian casualties, but in Algeria, no, they did
South
some brutal
Africa?
stuff. Yeah.
Apartheid? So
Yes.
hold up, how many? Well, I mean, not that it fucking matters.
No, but like, yeah, exactly. But the conversation is important to
Everyone like myself looks like they haven't been sleeping much.
to analyze from that perspective, because people that are forced into a corner that see no other way out are going to do this, and and if you don't make any concessions, if you treat the secular Palestinian Authority,
I feel like he's really trying to contextualize
and then
everything.
use them as a part of your security, your surveillance state, and have them be seen as collaborators with the Israeli government that is currently imprisoning and defending the settlers, like you said, the fundamentalist religious freaks in the West Bank, then of course Palestinians that are going to be like, well, what the fuck? Well, this is our two-state solution. This is our peaceful coexistence. That, like, we're losing our homes. We're getting bullied in our own neighborhoods. We have dudes from Brooklyn and Long Island coming in and being like, this is my house now. Like, if you see that as your peaceful coexistence as a pathway forward, you are inevitably radicalizing people to react to that in more and more violent ways. And that is entirely in the hands of the Israeli government to scale back, regardless of how Israeli people feel about the matter, whether they are understandably paranoid and understandably scared or not. I mean, remember, the first Intifada was rocks. The second one was bombs, like suicide vests and suicide bombs in public transit. It has escalated throughout years as the Israeli occupation has gotten worse and worse. And this is a reality that even former Israeli officials recognize and reckon with and ask for change on. You know what I mean?
100%. Dude, I understand everything you're saying.
Like,
That's
people
good.
forget, like in the 90s, there was at least some form of freedom of travel between Israel proper, West Bank, and Gaza. There were no, the border walls and the freedom of movement, freedom of travel was not stopped. It was not restricted. And
In the
look where we're at
90s
now. What's
In
up?
the 90s, I feel like there were a lot more talks of peace that seemed actually close. Like it didn't seem that impossible back then, from
Yeah.
what I remember.
Yeah. And then what happened? The one dude, the
Yeah,
one
got
dude who
killed
was
by-
like, okay, guys, look, I'm a Zionist. I think that we should, at the very least, maintain the security of the Israeli state in a reasonable way. We have to fucking reason with these guys. He was called a pussy and then assassinated. And the dudes that literally wanted him assassinated are now in positions of power.
Yeah, it's
And they have
psychotic.
been voted for. They've been voted into office over and over and over and over
Well,
again.
okay, so just to be clear, these fringe right freaks are like they've been getting more support, but like the reason they're in power, they don't usually get a lot of support in the parliament.
they build
Netanyahu
coalitions.
was forced into some really fucked up psychotic coalitions with fringe freak, genocidal maniacs.
Yeah, that's the latest government that he put together just to stay in power.
It's worth mentioning that it doesn't have wide support amongst Israelis.
Yeah, but even look, there is a member in the Knesset that immediately after immediately after October 7th came out and was like, this is directly the responsibility of the government and the occupation. This is why people are retaliating. And he was right. So I'm not saying that there aren't voices. It's just that the voices are deafened. The voices are additionally deafened when any kind of retaliatory action is immediately weaponized. It's expected and weaponized to make the Israeli population become even more reactionary and demand more blood.
Let me just ask you this then, and the analogy I gave you, okay? Just to get a direct answer, where as the terrorist attacks are happening, there's people calling, saying, my neighbors are being shot by terrorists right now. And there's people saying, go Palestine. Are they talking about Palestinian freedom, or are they encouraging Hamas to kill Israelis?
I don't know what people are. I don't know what their demands are.
It's not unreasonable for me to assume that.
No,
is it?
it's not unreasonable for you
And
to
I mean,
assume that.
listen, I think.
And if you're Palestinian, for the record, I'll take it one step further. Look, you talked about the paranoia that that Israelis feel towards Palestinians or Hamas, right? And I will say this as well. I think that if you are Palestinian and it is understandable that they see this as an emancipatory action. It doesn't have to be right, and it's not right, but it does not matter, because for them, this is the first time that they have seen they've seen like they've seen the security apparatus fall apart. That they've seen the barriers that were designed, that were constructed around Gaza, get bulldozed.
Dude, I got no problem with them breaking through the borders, like and doing some kind of shit. Maybe I do have a problem, but let's say
What kind of shit though?
they attacked a military outpost, they attacked settlers. I'm not saying I'm okay with it, but like this is
saying it's
more
understandable.
acceptable. But like going and roaming through a kibbutz and murdering families is like I just don't think
I
there's
agree.
any room for exceptions there.
No, I
like there's a
agree.
big difference. You know what I mean?
I
Like
agree.
I understand and I know you do. I'm just explaining for myself. Here.
Yes, civilian
like-
targets are never seen as appropriate. That is 100%.
And it was just
that is
so,
literally
and it was
the rule. That's the rule. Is
Yeah,
that like
and-
civilian targets are not appropriate?
And again, Israel kills civilians, right?
Yeah.
Not saying that. I know they do. It's like
This is surprisingly productive and calm and reasonable, to be totally honest. I think every single person is just like sitting back being like, oh, there's gonna be fireworks, holy shit, they're gonna fucking unload on each other.
it's not even debated, at least in serious people who are trying to have a serious conversation about it. And so It seems a little obtuse, though, to look at an activist during a terrorist slaughter saying, let's go Palestine, and not say, like, yeah, they're probably cheering on Hamas to kill Palestinians.
I think that whoever people are cheering on is ultimately inconsequential, because the actions of the state and the actions of our state, the actions of all Western
Bro,
states,
come on.
is significantly more important.
Right, right.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like,
Again.
And I find it to be unproductive, and I also think it's ridiculous. And I'm not saying you're doing this, but I think it's fucking ridiculous that the indifference that people have to human casualties is gross, and it's never more perfectly demonstrated by people being like, oh, the BLM Chicago account that is like not even affiliated with the organization, even though I don't even like the official BLM organization anyway, is posting a photo, right? And then immediately people are like, look, this is how BLM is. Like, you know, see, you guys have to immediately apologize. Everyone who has like been associated with BLM has to apologize for this random fucking Instagram account. That is politics. People are using the deaths of Israelis and the deaths of Palestinians to do domestic politics, and I think that's fucking ridiculous. And I also think, and maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't, that a part of the do you condemn the violence, do you condemn the violence, do you condemn the violence rhetoric is I think cynically applied to every single person that wants to talk about ending this conflict, even if it's talking about ending the conflict from the perspective of like Israeli security, where the Harvard student organization that got together and said the violence that Israel experienced today is squarely the consequence of the brutal occupation. They said that in the United States of America, the Harvard Students Organization. There's plenty of Jewish Americans that are involved in writing that. What happened? Every single psychopathic VC hedge fund dipshit said, these people need to be punished. Give us their names. And they got their names. They did canary mission style psychopathic doxing on students for saying what? For saying exactly the same thing that the Haaretz editorial board wrote, word for word, bar for bar. The Israeli paper of record.
I'll say this.
And the Harvard Students Association had an identical perspective. And what happened in America? They got doxxed. There are on the campus right now.
Again,
there are literally their photos are being posted.
I read the letter. It was not that bad. People are going crazy and way overreacting about it. If people are mad about that, it's probably because of the timing.
But there's no timing placed on another a group of people's emancipation. There's no like.
Bro,
my
their timing matters.
No,
let's not be obtuse about this. It's just this one point I'm trying to make. You can't cheer on Hamas, dude.
I do. Well, Ethan, I said, you know what I said, on the day of the occupation.
I know you don't, but like we're being a little silly. Like if somebody says go fucking
the only difference
Palestine,
between what I said
while people are being murdered, like that's pro Hamas. That's what it is. You're helping. You know what I mean? That's what it is. And I understand all the little subtext.
But what's the distinction? But what's the distinction between what the Harvard students said, what I said, what many Israelis also said as well, versus like what you perceive other people were saying when you don't know the fuller picture of like their perspective?
First of all, I don't have a problem with what they said.
Okay, you don't.
And I'm curious about how soon after this massacre it was released, because I assuming, and we can look into
what's the barrier of acceptability though? Or is it that you know me personally and you know what my opinion is, which is why
what did you say?
You can understand.
You didn't say anything like you did not say like free Palestine or some shit after murders were happening.
I said that resistance to apartheid is always imperfect and there are casualties everywhere, which means there are casualties on the Israeli side and there are going to be casualties on the Palestinian side.
Statement, Hasan.
Yes, that is ultimately the same as saying free Palestine. It is, because
it's not,
my goal
dude.
is
it's
to
not.
free Palestine.
I know I know what you mean,
No,
but it's not.
And
It's not
here's
the
the
same, bro.
Here's the thing.
You're saying what you're saying is, and again, people don't be silly about this. I'm talking about the timing. As civilians are being murdered, as the story's developing, people saying this, okay? That's an important distinction. Like, your take about, like, listen, Gazans are under apartheid, they're being genocided and all this, which is all true.
And that is what's causing this violent retaliation.
And it's what's causing this retaliation, which is all true. I'm sorry, but it's not the fucking same as saying, let's go Palestine as bodies are hitting the floor. It's not the same.
No, I understand.
And frankly, I think people
I
are in the
distinction.
Thank you. And I think
people are not being careful.
And I think people are justified.
And in the opposite direction, though, like people who are just attending rallies, like, you know, Palestinian solidarity rallies or rallies in support of, you know, Palestinian, you know, liberation, they are now being labeled as terrorist sympathizers or terrorist supporters or directly supporting Hamas, when they've been calling for an end to apartheid, like on a very regular basis. I attended pro-Palestinian rallies in Vancouver years ago. I'm guessing now, like, people are probably going to try using those photos and surfacing them and being like, well, this means that you support Hamas, because that's by design. It's like, if you support Palestine or Palestinian liberation, then you must support the horrifying actions of Hamas over and over and over.
And looking at that and thinking like, oh, okay, this person's happy that Israeli citizens are dying. Like what? Like, I'm sorry, but that's a defensible position to take.
No, Ethan, you're expanding on Free Palestine in that moment to I'm glad that Israelis are being murdered. The jump there is, no, let me explain.
Go ahead.
The jump there is literally you knowing what I represent and who I am versus you not knowing. You want to know why? Because you think when I said that, people didn't misconstrue my statements. My name is Hasan. I am the America Deserved 9/11 guy. If you think that the very same forces, the very same people that despise what I had to say about blowback and 9/11 did not have the exact same opinion that you have over
I don't know what other people
others.
thought about what you said, okay?
I
I know
know,
that
but-
I thought it was a much more respectful, empathic take, and I doubt. And when did you do that as bodies were hitting the floor, Hasan? When did you tweet out your statement about it?
I think, well, for the next 2 days, Palestinian forces were still deep embedded inside of Israeli proper positions in southern towns. So there were still people dying.
So how about this as a separation?
What?
When people are calling in the news and talking about their neighbors and children being murdered in front of them, is not the time.
Okay. Except,
I mean, it should be kind of obvious. I'm sorry.
I understand,
you
but
just can't do that. I'm sorry. It's
get
gross.
I get what you're saying, except, you as someone who recognizes the violence of the occupation, know that this, by the very same metrics, saying I stand with Israel implies that you stand with Israel's genocidal conduct, right?
Well,
and therefore,
well,
people
it does
saying,
kind
I
of
stand with Israel.
It does kind of seem like that. I mean, that is what it says.
Okay.
I disagree with people saying that.
So
if Israel's bombing Gaza, and people are saying I stand.
Not just bombing Gaza. Israel's apartheid regime and occupation is endless. It might be sidelined. It might be silent. It might be the constant, but that is still violent.
If Israel is bombing Gaza, okay.
Non-Israelis just bombing Gaza.
Dude, let me.
Okay.
I heard you.
So like right now.
Sorry. I have to pee so bad.
If you leave, I win.
It's over. I'm holding it.
If Israel IDF is bombing Gaza, and and you're seeing the media that I saw, or even not seeing the media I saw, because that civilians are getting injured or killed, and you say I support Israel in that moment, then I do think you are supporting the IDF and the Israeli regime's fucking
And you know what's just like so sad is that's like every major Western leader right now, every major Western politician with like few exceptions, and those few exceptions are now being tarnished. Every single time someone speaks out against occupation or apartheid, they're immediately met with, so you directly support terrorism, this is disgusting, how could you make a statement like this at a time like now? That is, generally speaking, what the majority of, like, look at mainstream press right now. If you're reading Reuters, if you're reading fucking Politico, if you're reading AP, any single fucking outlet, it's just non-stop one-sided reporting.
Okay. Do you think that there is the same energy and same condemnation, even remotely the same condemnation and energy, for those who say I stand with Israel, all the way from Justin Bieber using a photo of destroyed Gaza?
Wait, hold on, let me pull that
to
up.
be like praying for Israel.
The photo of
What
Gaza.
are you praying for, bro? Israel to stop? Like, what's going on? What are you praying for?
That was one of the craziest things I've seen. He posted a picture of
Jamie Lee
Gaza
Curtis and Justin Bieber,
basically
both.
a whole street block being leveled by Israeli bombs.
Absolute clowns.
And it says, "I'm praying for Israel."
Yeah, he was praying for Israel to stop.
But like, honestly, unless you don't know, you have no idea what you're posting here, are you praying for Israel to continue just like devastatingly destroying every square inch of space?
Jamie Lee Curtis posting photos. Jamie Lee Curtis posting a photo of children in Gaza looking up at the sky as Israel is bombing them and going, "I stand with Israel," Israeli flag, like and so many other examples. Charlie Kirk showing photos of the Israeli occupying force entering West Bank homes and posting that video and going, "Look at what the Hamas terrorists are doing." Or many other examples of
so much dumb,
so many examples of
stupid propaganda.
Palestinian children, babies in cages that the Israeli occupying force put them in, that people are posting and going, "Look what the Hamas is doing. Look at this cruelty. How cruel, how unusual."
I've seen it all. It's all crazy. It's all psychotic propaganda.
I don't even blame them.
Super cynical, fucked up things.
No, it's not. It's not even cynical.
Well, no, the people who create the propaganda are cynical.
It's not even cynical, though. I don't even fucking blame them, because yes, there is an asymmetry to this violence, and you have been willingly or you have completely been shut out from one side of that of the recipients of said violence, and therefore you simply do not know. You don't know what the reality is, and by God, there is a lot more examples pre-October 7. There's a lot more examples of like Israeli brutality and Israeli cruelty upon Palestinians. So
and that's the other thing, is that like year round, where's the discussions of this? Where's the coverage of this? Where's the politicians crying out in disgust? You know, I posted earlier about how this year alone over 20 Palestinian children have been shot dead, and there has been no international condemnation, no calls, no withdrawing of funding of any like shape or form. It's one of those things where it requires just unfathomable levels of horrifying devastation before people feel safe enough publicly to start making statements against the Israeli government and their actions. And then you might see a couple celebrities being like, give peace a chance. Well, should we all sing a song or something? Imagine there's no happiness, or all that shit. And then as soon as the bombing stops or the campaign ends and there's a ceasefire or a truce suddenly determined, all of a sudden you'll see them all withdraw extremely quickly, rapidly, all at once. And then maybe even start making apologies for going too hard or things like that.
Inevitably going to accidentally post shit like that.
The thing is, like, with all this nuance,
the yearly beating at
background
Al-Aqsa Mosque, that as well.
You still, if we're being serious about peace, you can't look at an Israeli, who is traumatized by what happened, in context of everything you've said, which I all agree with, and say, yes, but, it's horrible, or like, yes, but. It's like I'm just saying, on a human level, in the real world, you can't do that. You can't, you have to just give them their grief. You have to give them you have to grant them. I mean, they made them victims on that day. Those people, anyway.
Yeah.
And so Like,
do you feel like
when you're having a conversation with Israelis and Israelis are looking to the outside world, I'm saying I agree with everything you're saying, but if you're trying to communicate your condolences for grief or something like that, you don't say, yes, but.
I think people should be more careful.
I understand why you do.
I think people should be more careful, and I think people should
No one
be
does that
more
for
open-minded.
Palestine, though.
I agree.
I understand why you do it, Hasan.
One of the aspects, like, you know, at my most charitable right now, what I could say is that, like, if you look towards mainstream fucking, like, normie opinions, liberal opinions, like, the consensus is pretty strongly in one direction, right? It's absolutely that this was a horrifying event that happened to Israelis. And yes, the killing of civilians is fucking disgusting. And that's something in which I think, you know, Ethan's trying to, maybe he's trying to talk about the optics here, or just say, like, you can't the day out be like, context matters or something like that. But then people should, by virtue, do you have a platform? Do you have a massive platform? You do. Okay, so use that massive platform then to start educating your audience and teaching everybody about this so that more and more people can understand this. And so, yes, they can 100% say that no civilians, no children should be killed in the names of wars. They don't fucking understand. But what is happening year round to Palestinians? Because if you share that sympathy and empathy, as you should, as you absolutely should, Israeli children do not understand this conflict in the way the people who are calling the shots do, and do not deserve to be indiscriminately killed. Absolutely 100%. Please extend that sympathy to Palestinian children, 2.2 million of whom are living in an open air prison. 1.1 million, you know, half the population of Gaza is kids. Extend that sympathy, extend that empathy, extend it year round.
What?
I'm just talking about in the real world.
Yeah.
When you're talking to an Israeli who it comes from the Israeli perspective. Here's a fucking hard truth that I don't know if people will accept it or not. Listen, if you're born in Gaza, you're going to hate Israel 100%. If you're born in Israel, you're probably going to hate Hamas and maybe Palestinians. I don't know. I don't think most Israelis do, but Hamas for sure. Okay. And so it doesn't even, like, the human experience is constant. It doesn't matter which side of the fence you're born on. You're going to believe, you're going to fucking identify with whatever world experience you're going under.
I don't
That's it.
disagree with you. We've already established this. So now I ask you this. I genuinely, the major point of contention that you and I have in this process is I think it is frivolous and I think it is unproductive to find numerous people that may or may not have even openly condemned Hamas time and time again and be like, you're bad, you're wrong for saying this. Like, sure, they're wrong. But that doesn't change the reality on the ground.
I don't think it's fair to characterize it as like a few rogue tweets. I mean,
because ultimately,
this was a lot of
tweeting,
people.
No, I get it, but
Yeah.
people tweeting whatever the fuck, right, does not stop bombs from falling. People tweeting
Israeli
did not stop
perspective,
more.
bro. That's all I'm saying.
I know, but the Israeli perspective, if tomorrow the Israeli perspective shifted and was like, I mean, 85% of the fucking Israeli population currently thinks that Benjamin Netanyahu is the reason why 2,000 Israelis died. 85% of the Israeli population right now, according to the Jerusalem Post, in the latest
And let's all
polling that
fucking
was done.
remember that when talking
Okay.
about Israelis.
Yes. So some of them, though, obviously think they should be more brutal. Some of them think that Benjamin Netanyahu's occupation, or a much smaller percentage, think that the occupation is responsible for this violence. Now, having said that, do they have a say? Can they unseat Benjamin Netanyahu? Is he going to jail? No, of course not.
He's being tried, actually.
And exactly, which is why he built a coalition with fucking Ben Gvir and all the other far right freaks.
He was actually being tried for fraud or some crazy shit.
Yeah, even more far right freaks. And many people are calling for his resignation. He is not going to do that. It's not going to happen. Even if he resigns, think about it this way.
Hold on, 86% said that the attack from Gaza is a failure of leadership.
Yeah, 86. Yeah, that's what I said.
And by the way,
you did.
This is just
That's like everybody.
This is Jewish citizens, so this isn't even including obviously the Arab Israelis.
And people who watch this show know when we do polls and it's 86%, that's basically everybody.
Yes, exactly, 100%. Like, who the fuck is dick riding Netanyahu in that point? Because like, from either angle, even if you think like Palestinians should be ethnically cleansed, or you think Palestinians should, the occupation should end for the security purposes of Israeli citizens, it doesn't matter. You're still going to arrive at that conclusion that it is Benjamin Netanyahu's fault, because the power player in this situation is what matters. The power player in this situation is entirely responsible. The situation, for example, in Afghanistan, with the Taliban's numbers not withering away, but instead growing in popularity during the American occupation, is a perfect example of what happened, and is a perfect example of what's constant with occupying forces and with their violent means of subjugating, humiliating, and murdering the population. You fucking kill fuck, who was it? Even that, I forget who this was, but I remember someone saying like, look, in 2014 or in 2004, time and time again, whenever bombing campaigns occur and people die and children die, you know, their relatives are still alive. The ones that are still alive are going to go, well, I know who fucking bombed me. I know who fucking killed my family. I know who fucking dropped bombs on my house. I'm not going to forget that. That is at the heart of the matter, and a real reconciliation with that means completely going back on 75 years of brutal occupation and policies that were deemed necessary at the time for Israeli security, that absolutely was just a cynical way to justify taking more and more land from Palestinians who had no say, who have never had a say in the conversation, and still to this day have no say. I mean, seriously, the resilience of Palestinian people all around the world, of 5 million displaced, 2 million living in Gaza, and another 2.5 million living in the West Bank, is unimaginable. They've never had allies. They've always had imperfect allies and allegiances with people that are just simply only interested in destabilizing Israel. Like, I don't think
Iran just fucking wants to use them as a puppet.
I don't think Iran gives a shit about like Palestinians being free.
Dude.
I think it's very cynical, and they have nothing. They have nothing. They've never had anything. There is no equivalence here between the well-oiled military machine of the Israeli army that has gotten $264 billion in American taxpayer dollars to continue its operations. It's just not. There's an asymmetry to the violence, and there's also an asymmetry to the conversation where Palestinians, like living in fucking Gaza, are being called by the BBC, and while bombs are being dropped on their fucking heads, the BBC anchor is like callously being like, "Do you condemn the Hamas violence?" It's
and
like,
by the way, that's fucking stupid.
it's like fucking insane, and they never.
And I don't want people to conflate what I'm saying with BBC asking someone in Gaza taking bombs if they support Hamas.
So here's the thing: I've never, ever in my entire life, ever seen a couple things. I've never seen the American government, the State Department, ever say this was a provoked act of violence from Palestinians. I've never seen that. They always say it's unprovoked because it is supposed to be, that violence is like, they act like that violence was in a vacuum. And I know you agree with me on this. I don't think you disagree with me on this at all. They never say this was a provoked act of violence, okay? That is by design. And I've never seen somebody bring up an Israeli official, okay, to television when Gaza is being bombed and being reduced to rubble, or even when Gaza is not being bombed and the brutal occupation still remains, and been forced to condemn the violent actions of the Israeli government. I've never seen that. I've never heard that. I've never seen that. And I don't think that that will ever happen, because at the end of the day, America wants a military base in the Middle East. America wants a destabilizing force that they see in the Middle East. America wants to keep selling weapons. America still wants conflict. The Western world still wants conflict, and they use Israel to that end, and they will continue doing this in 35 different states in the United States of America, where all of these like free speech, supposedly First Amendment defending states. It is illegal to ask to boycott and ask to make divestments and to ask to sanction the state of Israel. It is illegal. It is, you cannot hold a position as a school teacher without signing a fucking thing that says, I will never participate
He's not
in
wrong for people who
the
don't know this, by the
peaceful
way.
demand that you want to boycott, divest, or put
What
sanctions on the
country is
state of
that in?
Israel. What?
What countries is that in?
In the United States of America, 35 states.
Yeah.
Oh, 35 states.
37 as of now, I believe, but
crazy.
35 as of 2021.
That's
Think about
fucking
that.
nuts. Yeah, it's
And
nuts.
the APAC wrote that legislation. They helped push it. They wrote the legislation. There is no comparison.
And by the way,
And-
conservative support for Israel is about as cynical as it gets. Because
Absolutely.
Yes.
Their whole worldview is that the Jews are guarding Israel until Jesus comes back.
Yes.
And when he does, he's going to kill all the Jews.
Yes, it is a suicide cult. It is a suicide cult. The assumption that like from the river to the sea, the chosen sons and daughters of God will maintain Israel, and therefore Jesus Christ will come down and defeat Shaitan and Megiddo is a psychotic suicidal cult. Yet that is the reason why not American Jews, but evangelical Christians, evangelical Protestants are the #1 defenders of the Israeli occupation. They are the ones
true.
who push
They're
for
crazy.
it. They're the ones who fucking fund the psychopathic settlers that you pointed out.
Yeah.
That they are the ones who open up 501c3s
So
so
it's
that
all
they can get
Christians' fault.
tax
Thanks for
deductible
finally saying
donations. Yeah, no, I think yes, of course, Christians play a gigantic role in this. I mean, it was the fucking British that propped up Zionist brigades. Yes,
I mean,
this still
in a
goes back
way,
to England.
in a way, though, it is like, you
It
know,
all comes back to the Brits,
it's like,
doesn't it?
you know, if you're coming out of World War II at the Holocaust and you're being offered land by Britain and you're
Uh-oh.
Hold on, your
Are they cutting Ethan out?
camera's out.
I'm gonna go pee. I'm gonna go pee while you're gone. Oh no, now I'm censored.
I'm fucking winning this argument.
I'm not taking a pause to pee.
Well, they can hear me. Hold on.
No,
Does
no.
that bother you that I
No,
said
of course there are. But the reason why I think it's like laughable is
Great,
because like which
quartering
direction is the
clip to
genocide
have.
happening?
Bro,
You know what I mean? Like it's usually I don't think I think that you have moral clarity overall, which is why this is a much more charitable conversation. But I think plenty of people do not have that moral clarity, and when they are using the condemn Hamas line, it's not necessarily to get your perspective. It's to deflect away from you talking about Palestinian emancipation
Dude,
and all of the
you
all of the
can't-
wrongs that they
Even though everything you're saying is right,
yeah.
to diminish this idea that there are Palestinians, terrorists mostly, I'm not saying all Palestinians, I don't think most Palestinians even support Hamas, that saying that Palestinians who want genocide of Jews isn't relevant because, again, it affects the Israeli paranoia. It affects the Jewish paranoia, the paranoia psyche, the Israeli psyche. So, like, even though it's absurd, you say that's silly because the Israelis are doing the genocide, still fucking feeds into the pathology of what it means to be an Israeli.
Yeah,
That's-
I
you know what I mean?
understand where you're coming from, but ultimately, getting swept away in demanding condemnations over and over again is entirely unproductive and also not reflective of the reality
I don't
of
think
the
I'm
American
doing that. I
population's
don't think-
attitudes towards
First
the
of all,
defense of Israel and
I don't
its
think that's a fair
unjustifiable occupation.
I don't think that's a fair
come on.
assessment of what I'm asking. What I'm
okay.
saying.
Okay. Well, maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying.
No,
but
you're saying
but like there is
the
no
expectation of constant condemnation of Palestinians against Hamas is not what I'm advocating for.
if you want
Just to be totally
you
clear,
want to
because I know
talk-
people think that about me.
if you want to talk about like if right now you want to talk about Palestinian emancipation, whether you are Jewish or whether you are Arab, whether you are Muslim, it does not matter. If you talk about Palestinian emancipation at any point during this endless occupation and senseless brutality, you are immediately met with condemn Hamas. Why do you love Hamas? Why do you want to
Not
believe?
support that. That's a different
No,
thing.
I know,
feel.
but
okay,
that
I
is-
just want to make that
but
clear.
You and I having this back and forth.
I just want to make
is-
it clear because people think that's what I think, and I want to make it clear that what I'm saying is different entirely to expecting everyone to constantly condemn Hamas. That's not what I think people need to do.
What you have a different perspective on the matter that is not widely shared in the Western world, and that is no better demonstrated by the actions that people are taking against the fucking Harvard Students Association versus like what the Israeli paper of records perspective is, which is identical to said Harvard Students Association.
And the sad part about what you said is that you say Westerners don't agree with that, and you're right, but a lot of Israelis do. And that's fucked up. That people, you know what I mean? Because that's not what people see.
Okay.
Even though
now that we've established that, though, now that we've established that, do you understand that what I mean when I say there's a double standard with the callous indifference that people demonstrate to the death toll over and over again? I mean, we're talking about dudes that literally Benjamin Netanyahu, when in 2008. People living under brutal occupation in the world's largest open-air prison in Gaza, where 2 million people live, and 47% of that population is under the age of 14 and under, okay? Where their water, electricity, like you also pointed out, is controlled by Israel. They did a peaceful march, a demonstration for a right to return. Thousands of children, babies, and adults alike were ruthlessly shot at by Israeli snipers in that right to return as they walked and demonstrated and walked towards that fence, okay? Walked towards that border fence that traps them inside of Gaza. Thousands. While that was happening, if you had seen, or maybe you weren't paying attention, maybe you didn't see this, the media coverage of the matter was some of the most disgusting I have ever seen. While that was happening, the Trump administration was pushing to further annex Jerusalem and offer it in its entirety and recognize it as Israeli, which is, of course, a major point of contention and has never been allowed by the international authority. Completely unjustifiable, inhumane, immoral. Okay? So on the one hand, the Trump administration alongside the Israeli government were celebrating this action. On the other hand, on the other side of Israel proper, you had babies being fucking slaughtered, medics, press, journalists, and
there's a double standard.
Yes,
absolutely.
Now hold on. This is really important. This is really important to understand. Okay, if you demonstrate peacefully and get slaughtered, and then Benjamin Netanyahu goes on television and says callously, these are telegenically dead children. Palestinians have telegenically dead children. If former Israeli ambassadors are going on TV and saying Hamas is using these babies as meat shields, that somehow Israel is like RoboCop, or this like force that simply cannot stop itself from butchering, slaughtering fucking Gazans, and it's always in the hands of Hamas, and that is the constant position in both American media, and it is reflected in polling over and over again, where more than 50% of Americans side with Israel on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and only 9% of Americans actually side with Palestinians on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, constantly going back and forth about like what the DSA-affiliated organization doing like a Free Palestine demonstration or whatever in the aftermath of October 7, and saying that feels like you're in defense of Hamas, sweaty, is unproductive, and it also doesn't even reflect anything. It doesn't reflect the reality. We know that in the Western world, Palestinians have no...
it's like, it's emotional. You can't blame people for seeing that and getting upset.
But if you recognize that, then you recognize when you see a sea of I stand with Israel. I stand with Israel. Israel must ethnically cleanse Gaza.
I do
varying degrees
that.
of people saying that.
I always have.
Then how are Muslims in America that have lived in a massive surveillance state post 9/11? How are Muslims in the Western world who are constantly treated like fucking dogs, who literally are used as a political pawn, even though their homes have been destabilized by America's unjustifiable post 9/11 actions in the form of the war on terror? How are they supposed to think, oh, well, I guess everybody wants us fucking dead. I guess everybody wants the Palestinians to die. Everyone thinks that this is the normal position. Everyone thinks this is the constant position. Like, of course, they are going to look at that and think the exact same things that you're saying Israelis are feeling, the exact paranoia that Israelis are feeling. And quite frankly, if we look at the asymmetry of violence, if we look at the displacements, if we look at the subjugation, the brutal colonial occupation of not only Palestinians, but many other Muslim countries that have also been ruthlessly occupied and slaughtered by Western coalition forces, it is perfectly understandable and well within the right of Muslims to look at that and be understandably paranoid, and not necessarily paranoid thinking that, you know, you are going to have Hamas forces do a second Holocaust in Israel when the exact opposite is happening to Palestinians right now. Do you disagree?
No.
Okay. All right. That's why I think it's unproductive that a lot of, not you, but like especially so many liberals in America are like, oh man, the optics of this look really bad. And also, you know, Palestinians really fucked up their chances of emancipation. It's like, you have to be oblivious to the reality, and I know you're not, but others have to be oblivious to the reality of the Palestinian existence to make such callous takes, to be like, oh, well, optics sweaty. No, the optics in that situation just imply
it does
that
matter.
you,
Optics do matter.
I know optics matter, but optics don't matter because optics matter in general, but optics do not matter when we talk about the plight of Palestinians, because there's not a single person that is out there defending them in the Western world, whether it be elected officials or whether it be people in the media. And those who choose to do that, those who choose to stand up and say, no, Palestinians deserve emancipation. I'm not saying you're not one of these people, but those who do stand up and say that, okay, they get immediately cast as a terrorism defender. And I saw the spiritual consequences of that in a post 9/11 America. We are still living in the rubbles of post 9/11 America, and its attitude towards Muslims and its attitude towards Islam in general. And oh man, it does seem like this is somehow even worse than that, because I guess it didn't.
Yeah, it sounds pretty.
It didn't impact Americans directly, so they can be even more bloodthirsty without any fear that there could be violent retaliation.
Right. I think we both have said our piece on this, and maybe we can move on to another topic now, because there is other stuff I want to talk
Ben
about.
Shapiro got mad at me.
I didn't actually watch that yet.
Yeah.
Are we going to get to the Taylor Swift film soon?
Hold on, there is stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay.
This great March of Return is fucking crazy, though. Just reading about this. Fucking 100 and... What does it say?
People keep acting as if optics exist in a vacuum, forgetting there's usually a group dedicated to reframing the optics. Yeah, I mean, like, when Hasan is invoking 9/11, what does absolutely terrify me about this was just seeing how rapidly after, you know, in a post 9/11 world, how collectively any voices of reason or anyone trying to have like a calm discussion about the matter being like, you know, there should be more context to this. This is not just happening out of nowhere. And plus, can we actually understand what took place and why it would be that someone would do something as horrifying as attacking thousands and killing thousands of civilians in America? Right after that, immediately, it was like the war on terror. You're with us or you're against us. The fucking Patriot Act. We are justified in monitoring our citizens because they live among us. Fucking, this is the new world. Every single person who is like brown in America or the West, by the way, the same shit was happening here in Canada to the exact same levels of paranoia, has to pledge consistent and unyielding fealty to the United States. That's why you suddenly saw fucking American flags and stickers and I love America shit popping up all over every fucking, you know, person who wasn't white's store or car or whatever it was, in constant, you know, fear that people might judge them to be a part of the new axis of evil that had been established, and how the invasion of Afghanistan happened so quickly with so little fucking pushback, and then they eventually succeeded in convincing the world that yes, they also needed to invade Iraq because they were part of the axis of evil, and maybe there was a collaboration between I don't know, Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein. We're looking into it, but Saddam Hussein Hussein is definitely trying to create weapons of mass destruction and use them. ... Like it was just fucking like this, and how quick, and how anyone who even like fucking deigned to speak out against it would immediately be seen as fucking vile and some kind of traitor and some kind of supporter of terrorism.
We're talking about 2018 March, the freedom, the right to return.
I'm just reading about it. 40 kids, 190 Palestinians were killed.
You know what the IDF,
protests.
you know what the
Thousands were
IDF official
injured.
account posted and then deleted? Shouts out to B'Tselem one more time. Wonderful organization. Okay, wonderful Israeli organization, by the way. They captured it before IDF deleted it, because this shows the indifference.
What did they tweet?
They said every single bullet was accounted for.
That's much older.
Here,
That's
read
before my
out
time.
the casualty reports.
It says 190 Palestinians were killed, 40 kids, thousands were injured.
There's videos of IDF snipers filming, like putting their phone like this, propped up against the optics, sniping a child, killing them, hitting them in the head, celebrating that his legs flew up in the air as he was shot, and others around them celebrating.
That's fucking, I mean, that's demonic.
So when you see that, when you experience that, and then the American dogs in American media refuse to reckon with that violence and instead turn around and have former Israeli officials say these are Hamas-backed operatives, like the fucking 2-year-old or 4-year-old, the pregnant mother that was shot. These are Hamas operatives that deserve to be fucking killed for peacefully demonstrating. What do you do? What can you do? No one hears you, and you're constantly backed into a corner. You are going to retaliate. That is, of course, going to happen.
And Israel needs to understand that. The Israelis,
and I think some Israelis do.
They need to understand that. And that's,
okay.
It's
so
like,
then,
it's that mutual empathy. Like, Israelis need to understand why Hamas is attacking them. If they can't understand that, then nobody can be helped. I mean, it's just, it's insane to not see their perspective.
The major thing here is that I think this is there's a reason why Israel did not have local media go to the kibbutzes that you were talking about that were slaughtered. They originally went immediately. They said, we're having foreign press come here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There was a reason for that, because they know that internally the opinion of the Israeli population currently doesn't matter. The Western opinion.
I think the Israeli opinion on the massacre was pretty unified, dude.
Well, what they say about that is that they don't. Everybody's
What the hell?
already.
Hold on one sec, Hila. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
They're saying everybody is already in such grief and broken that they don't need to show this terrible footage, but
I mean,
they're saying it's important for the world to see what happened, so that's why.
Yeah, they're doing propaganda. It's like, it's not surprising, is it?
Yeah. No, it's not. But I'm just saying that, like, I think that
it did happen.
I think that there is more.
They're not like putting the bodies there and like putting them in fucked up ways.
Of course not.
I'm just saying,
That's not what I'm saying at all.
It's not that cynical to send in the press.
I think that
it's not cynical at all. In that case,
I think that the coverage from certain Israeli outlets on the matter is more critical on the Netanyahu administration, and showing that.
I mean, you don't even need to go this far, to be honest. Like, Hasan just needed to point out that where does Western media focus itself? Where's the eyes of Western media on this? Where was Western media for fucking the rest of the year when, again, yes, war crimes, atrocities, the indiscriminate killing of children, the invasion of mosques, the gassing of mosques, the beating of people who were praying in holy sites. Like, there is no eyes on this for the majority of the year. And then when something horrifying like this happens, which absolutely is condemnable, that's when all of the press suddenly is like, this is going to be the story, the cycle 24/7. That's the reality, they turn a fucking blind eye to this the rest of the year. They ignore war crimes and atrocities, and they hyper focus on this. That's the point.
I think, and
you need to
like
get across.
the interviews that I've seen as well, of the parents fucking demanding, basically kicking out Israeli Knesset members that are visiting the hospitals, yelling at them, telling them to fuck off, telling them that this is their fault. I think that, like, there's two different reasons for obviously that level of anger. Some of which say you did this to us by being more brutal, and that this violence, of course, is going to be a constant, and it's going to be a violent retaliation. And then there's also the people that are saying you are not violent enough, right? But ultimately, everyone is critical of the Israeli government at this point from different angles, and I think that's the reason why they care more about the Western media's opinion than anything else, because they don't want to repeat the mistakes that happened last time in both 2018 and also the Shireen Abu Akleh murder, again in the hands of an Israeli sniper that the Israeli government said was actually Palestinians, and Western media immediately disproved that. And then what did the IDF do? What did the IDF do?
I don't know.
When a wonderful voice for good, a Christian woman, a Christian Palestinian, and an American citizen, Shireen Abu Akleh, was murdered as she was on her way to one of these refugee camps. She had a press vest on. She had a press helmet on.
Clearly,
she was shot in the neck so that she could be assassinated. Okay. This was a major issue. They wanted to do. Sorry, this is really fucked up. They went to her funeral and beat the shit out of people and ripped the Palestinian flag off of her. Palestinians can't have a moment of peace in this fucking world. They can't even mourn the dead. Sorry. The IDF went in and beat the shit out of the Palestinians that were mourning her at her funeral, that were holding her casket, and ripped the Palestinian flag off of her casket. How is that allowed? How can that continue? How do you not see that? That's in the West Bank. This is a Christian woman. This is not a Muslim. This is not Hamas. This is a journalist that was beloved in the Muslim world. And she was assassinated for speaking out and trying to shine a light on the atrocities. It's hard to look, it's very hard to hold my composure on this. This is something I've talked about for years and years. But when that kind of ruthlessness, sound like fucking Jordan Peterson when he talks about men. Jesus Christ. When that
bloody hell, you're
when
doing
that
great.
kind of
Keep going,
brutality
Buckle.
is so normal,
Don't stop now,
so
Buckle.
normalized, when that's the everyday existence of Palestinians in the supposed collaborative project with the Israeli government, how can you expect them to do anything but violently retaliate? There's no end in sight for this. And now you have cynical pieces of shit on social media. If you want to talk about social media and people saying stuff on social media, you have cynical liberal commentators that supposedly adorn the politics of radical emancipation saying, oh, how wonderful that
Clean up your room.
that Joe
Damn,
Biden
Worshipper
is
of the
trying to
Olympians.
create
Thank you so much for
an
the 3 gifted
exit
subs.
corridor, a
It's very generous of
humanitarian
you.
corridor for those who are being bombed in Gaza right now to escape through Egypt. That's still ethnic displacement. That is not humanitarian. It is completely unjustifiable. Completely. There is no equivalent. There is no moral equivalence. There is no equivalence whatsoever. And there is no symmetry in the way that this is covered in the Western media. And that is by design. They refuse to show Palestinians as humans. And they have very successfully been able to dehumanize them. There are voices out there. There are voices in Israel. There are voices out there who see it, who see the brutality, who see the endless humiliation that Palestinian people have endured. And I stand with them, and I don't care. I will always stand with them, even if there is a moment of violent retaliation. Okay? They have nothing. They have no allies. They have nothing in the world. And people
You can't even send them
celebrate
supplies.
their destruction. It's happening right in front of our eyes. There's nothing. There's no equivalent. It is so horrifying that this can happen in the supposed only democracy in the Middle East, the supposed beacon of prosperity, in a sea of barbaric Arabs, right, who do mass rapes and love to behead people. All of these, some of which are true, by the way, I know. All of these are racist canards specifically to heighten the tensions and to justify what Israel is doing in broad daylight in moments that the world even chooses to care about paying attention to what's going on in Gaza. That's why I wanted to make the distinction that what goes on in the West Bank, this is constant. This is every day for Palestinians. Every day. It's crazy. Like, I know it's, you can say, like, oh, land back movements are supposed to be violent or whatever, but there's nothing more violent than this. This is the violence. It's just that it is
Ignored.
It's legalized.
Endorsed.
It is
funded.
state-backed. So we are not trained to see it as a violent act. That's the difference. It's only violent or it's only terrorism when it's a non-state actor or a foreign adversary that engages in it. And that's why if you look at the United Nations, if you look at British or European authorities that have spoken out, correctly condemned Russian atrocities in Ukraine, you will hear silence when it comes to Israel and what Israel has done and what Israel continues to do to Palestinians. Disgusting. Sorry.
I think I can say I don't know. Seeing this,
It's fine. I'm good.
seeing this and hearing you talk about it, I do probably feel like I haven't been as empathetic with the Palestinian experience as haven't, you know what I mean? Like, I can fully acknowledge that I haven't been 100% empathetic with that. And that, my perspective is different. Or I mean, not
Also, people just don't fucking know is like the other really sad thing about all this is that, like, if you were to just talk to your parents or normies or anyone else who just reads the occasional mainstream news, like how many people, like, that obviously I knew all about that. I was covering that when that story happened and the horrors and atrocities that occurred directly afterwards. But that's people who are like, tuned into Democracy Now and fucking media that's actually got the fucking bravery to report on that kind of shit. But that's one of the reasons why most people, they're 24/7, 365 days of the year, there is radio silence on this issue, even though it continues to be just as horrifying and just as devastating. And these stories can happen, and they'll get The Intercept will report on it, or again, Democracy Now. But like in terms of fucking American media, it's few and far between.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, seeing this and seeing you react makes me feel like, some of the dealings I've had with people on Twitter and stuff is, like, even though I disagree, is probably not empathetic enough towards this perspective. This is really sad.
This is just a very it's just one example of many. It's every life is important. Like,
you should watch the footage.
The Israeli lives are important too. I recognize
the idea
that.
of beating people trying
just
to
that
mourn and grieve.
there's no one out there that will speak out, and those who do are immediately branded as supporters of terrorism. I'm not saying you're doing that, Ethan, but the reality is, when you have the audacity as like a journalist in British media or a journalist in American media to sit across the desk from someone whose family has been murdered and to say, do you condemn the violence of Hamas, when you have never asked an Israeli official if they condemn the ongoing occupation, when you turn a blind eye to it? I'm sorry, I don't give a fuck what like some random person said about land back movements being violent on Twitter, because one is the entire state, one is the entire media apparatus, the other is some fucking person on Twitter. And I don't know what the full scope of their perspective is, but I can tell you, I know the full scope of the perspective of mainstream media and the fucking dogs in America, and the fucking violent dogs in all of the European nations, with the exception of Ireland, that have regularly supplied weapons, turned a blind eye to the atrocities, and still to this day cynically and in the most disgusting way declare that any kind of anti-Zionist sentiment, no matter who speaks it, could be Jews, could be Arabs, could be Palestinians, could be Muslims, is anti-Semitism. It's so unimaginable. You have people in
this is so important.
England.
This is happening, by the way.
A woman
on one of the
or
biggest
a
YouTube
man who
channels.
had a Palestinian flag was seized by the authorities and was arrested. Now they're talking about possibly declaring the Palestinian flag to be a terrorist flag. That conflation between Hamas and the Palestinians is the policy. That is the policy that is cynically built up, propped up, and defended over and over again, so that when babies are dying in Gaza, when children are being slaughtered in Gaza, when settlers spit on West Bank Palestinians and kill them and don't get punished, and as a matter of fact, the families of said victims get punished, when they're ruthlessly thrown out of their homes, you can still always turn around and justify it by either turning a blind eye to the atrocities or only covering the atrocities when there is any sort of retaliation from Hamas or from the Palestinian side in general. And then, sorry. And then we just say, why won't you condemn the violence? Why won't you condemn the violence? You are supporting Hamas.
Let's. I gotta pee.
Okay, I win the argument then.
I'm gonna button out that whole fucking.
The whole last part.
Yeah, the whole last part.
Okay.
You know, I feel like I definitely understand where you're coming from. Like, I mean, I 1000% understand where you're coming from. And I do think I can acknowledge, like I touched on before, that I am capable of being more empathetic with their experience.
And I think you are more empathetic by an incredibly wide margin in comparison to the average American. Even though there are, of course, and this does not reflect American Jewish people in general. American Jews are at the forefront of demanding the end to the occupation, the Jewish Voice for Peace. If
Amazing
not now,
go follow
there's
it.
another organization. There are wonderful friends of mine that are regularly writing about this in very thoughtful ways, and have never ceased their coverage. It's you know, it's so shitty. It's so sad. I don't know what else to say about it. Look, there was another point I wanted to make, but now I'm forgetting it.
Let's do this. Let's enjoy this video, and then I'm gonna go pee, and then we'll move on to another topic.
Okay.
Here, we never got to watch this. This is the mashup of us having a fake conversation.
So if you don't know about this, Jack Pacebic, the fucking white supremacist, posted this video, which then got retweeted by so many fucking right-wing accounts as being like, lol, fucking look at Ethan and Hasan finally turning on each other. Lol, look what just took place. Clearly fucking edited, not even edited well, by the way, as a like fucking ex-professional editor. It's garbage, but edited, and people were just taking it as absolute truth that the two of them were debating live, when in clearly one case, Hasan is fucking yelling at one of his chatters, and it's completely separate fucking H3 broadcasts.
All right. Yeah.
5% of their targets were civilians, okay?
Did you not just see that they killed 700 people?
But it doesn't matter because they're not a fucking real military. They're disorganized, and of course there were people who did some fucked up ass shit, and civilians died as a consequence of that too.
It's war, innocent people die. All right, so let's bring the Iraqis out, Iraqi terrorist groups to your neighborhood, and see if you care. People murder everyone you love.
Of course they did that,
This
and that is
editing is
completely
crazy.
fucked up.
There's like a cut while you're talking.
They do a really well. I think they do a decent job of like at least interlacing your audio,
God.
so it actually does seem like I'm responding.
I don't know. It seems so far-fetched, but people are believing it. Pretty
Think about
interesting.
what
This is wild.
they're saying.
Yeah, it's wild.
When immediately after,
But like,
terrorist
how fucking cynical is this, man? To create this.
people are saying, I
They got
support
community
Palestine.
noted.
And what they don't mean
The
Palestine, they
people,
mean
the
Hamas.
targets that they fucking killed, they're military. That's according to the Israeli
Or
numbers.
even more than Israelis, perhaps,
Yeah, it's so
deserve
bad.
to be burned alive by terrorists.
Like, bro,
and
do
your
you know
whole
what
family
life
murdered
is
in front
like?
of you.
Have you
Christ.
read a book? Have you like watched anything that isn't like pure Zionist copium
In fact,
propaganda?
why don't you just make it easier? Why don't you just fly to ISIS and do them a favor and just let them, you
Oh my
know,
God.
just serve yourself on a platter.
Why
for
is
them.
Israel so violent? Why do they not actually scale it back a little bit?
Freaks. Bloodthirsty,
I'm not
savage,
sitting here and being
fucking
like, oh,
freaks,
that's
man.
totally justifiable. That's
They
that,
come to your
that
neighborhood
happens.
and they just start
This is
burning
crazy,
people
isn't
alive,
it?
killing people.
It is editing is my
kidnapping
passion.
Absolutely
Yeah, no
insane.
shit.
Somebody
desecrating
did
bodies.
this.
I
And the
am
first
much more
take is,
interested in
you know,
how that happened.
Clean up your
It's
room.
pretty fucking.
Thanks,
I mean,
Reddish 5.
props, I
Appreciate
guess.
it.
Like if they had done it as a
Yeah.
joke, it'd be
Oh,
one thing, but to
the-
try and trick
Oh,
people.
I remember what I
nuts.
was gonna say. Okay, this is not about anything here, but it's neither here nor there. But like, you didn't know about the
Yeah, it's supposed to be
2018
real, as if
numbers,
they were
right?
actually debating.
The march,
It's like it's such
the
trash.
march to return.
No.
So you didn't know about that. You didn't know about Shireen Abu Akleh,
Mm-mm.
and you are, despite not knowing any of that, and these are just some of the hundreds of examples. There's a reason why you don't know, even though you are empathetic and to the Palestinian plight. Okay, there's a reason why you don't know though, and I think that deserves examination. Why have you never heard of this? Do you want to know why? Because it will never get the same level of coverage that you know the Israeli retaliation and the justification for it gets.
To be fair, I haven't really been paying attention to the news until like very recently,
Well, there's a lot of Americans.
but I'm not disagreeing with you. Just
But that's
trying to
one of the reasons why I'm saying this is so important. I know a lot of people are always just like, why the fuck does Hasan do this show? He's doing a show with a shit lib. What the fuck? Blah blah blah. It's like he's reaching a lot of other people who are nowhere near as fucking pilled as Hasan might be on these topics on a regular basis, right? Like a lot of his audience learn shit for the very first time because they hear it. Maybe that's going to provoke thousands of people for the first time to Google it. When they Google it, they're going to start reading up on it. Once they start reading up on it, they're going to start learning about so many things, like learn about asymmetrical warfare in great detail and suddenly realize that it is an occupation and realize that it is apartheid and be like, holy fuck, okay, I have been lied to by mainstream press for fucking years and years and years. There's only one side of the story that's ever been told to me when I turn on the news, when I turn on anything. You see glimmers and fucking little teeny moments of hope when it's like, hey, by the way, CNN actually had this one interview that was half decent. Oh, look at this. There was an NBC reporter who actually asked, what about the children in Gaza? Things like that. But those, again, those are little fucking fragments. That's all you get through the fucking, the otherwise non-stop propaganda that is promoted on a regular basis so that regular people will weaponize this shit and use it. That's why when you have conversations, they'll be like, well, fucking, do you support fucking the slaughter of innocent Israeli children? And it's like, goddamn no, but why does that have to be prefaced and asked in every single breath? Like, I'm not asking you, do you support the slaughter of innocent Gazans? Do you support the occupation of innocent Gazans? Do you support the starvation now, the complete withdrawal of electrical power, which means that hospitals no longer can run dialysis fucking machines and respirators, that people will just die by now the thousands if nothing is done immediately? Do you support that? Do you have to qualify that every time you talk about this? Here's the mic. What do you think? What's your opinion?
Defend my own ignorance.
No, I know. It's just, I hope that people that are faced with this reality have a more empathetic approach, rather than turn around and say they deserved it and you deserve it too because you're a supporter of terrorism. You're not doing that, of course. There are those who know about it and yet still push this line, though. But I am a firm believer that if the media was a little bit less interested in manufacturing consent and creating a justification in the minds of Americans for ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, that more people would most likely say this is unacceptable, completely and utterly unacceptable.
All right, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I want to do all of this, so it might take a while if you're okay with that.
It's fine.
But I think I think that we're having a good thing happening here, so.
Yeah, we're solving it.
I want to keep it going. I mean, yeah, so I'll be right back. I'm just going to go to the bathroom. Hasan, turn off his mic, please.
Yeah. That's...
For some reason, they're like, Hamas would never do that.
I don't
They
think
would
people
only
are-
slaughter 1,500 people. They would only shoot a baby with an AK-47, as if that's not more as brutal.
I said this yesterday. I talked about this quite a bit. I think that the coverage of this has been ridiculous. Like the fact that, first of all, the fact that it was not verified until now is insane to me. And the fact that it got all the way to the president, who said I saw the photos when he had not seen it and just repeated it, is wild. Like, and ultimately, it doesn't matter what method of execution occurred when children were slaughtered, when babies were slaughtered. It literally doesn't matter.
Well, that's why I always thought it was so silly when I would see leftists being like, they didn't rape anyone or decapitate any babies. It's like, I guess they're cool then. I guess they're cool.
Shot them.
Yeah, they're cool.
It does
But they did
actually.
actually.
Seem kind of moot.
No,
but Hamas.
This is why this conversation is frivolous, and I mentioned it time and time again yesterday. That, like, okay, the babies were not decapitated,
They were killed,
or they were,
for sure.
but they're still killed.
Yeah.
So it is silly.
Stupid, dumbass.
It's silly to have a back and forth on this. However, the only reason as to why the assessment should be made later down the line on how quickly information that is not verified yet can spread all the way to the highest levels of government, and what that serves, what purpose that serves, that part needs a close examination, especially considering prior instances where, not that it matters. Again,
I mean, it was true.
It is true.
Yeah.
And it was ruthless, and it was brutal.
It is fucking ruthless,
and this is
man.
something that needs to be this is something that of course needs to be considered.
That is
The reason why people were the reason why a lot of people, at least I follow, who have been covering this on the ground inside of Israel, and some inside of Gaza as well, was because of the Kuwait baby incubator situation that occurred in the past, where Amnesty International and the American authorities in the lead up to Operation Desert Storm said that the Iraqi soldiers were taking babies out of their incubators and like tossing them and like killing them, which is like incredibly brutal, right? In that circumstance, that was completely not real. That had not happened at all. And Amnesty International went in and looked at it. And there was even an eyewitness testimony
I think it's got its
that
own
was offered
Wikipedia
in
page
Congress.
at this point.
That was just a complete falsehood, a complete fabrication, and that played a role in justifying it to Americans that like we have to invade. And I think that's the reason why, because the American government has done this before. I think that's the reason why people thought that this was the exact same situation. However, it wasn't the exact same situation because the baby incubator story was false, whereas babies were still killed in this circumstance. So
It doesn't
not
matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
But the truth is, though, that this is not going to help anything.
And-
this is
and-
this is going to be
and
this is
here's
going to
the thing.
fuel a lot of bad feelings. This being
and,
true.
And here's the thing, right? Like even if those babies weren't beheaded, let's say, right, or they weren't decapitated, whether by gunfire or directly with knives or whatever, which is, I can't believe we're having this conversation. It's so fucking ridiculous. Okay, they still died. It's not like the Israeli government was going to do anything different. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, or it's not like the people that are receiving this information were going to feel differently. Like the goal there is to absolutely demand verification, because you have to do that, because in the fog of war there is so much misinformation that gets presented. And the
Arma
media
3
should
is
do their
providing
fucking
more
jobs,
war footage
100%.
on Twitter than any other fucking reporter.
And I do have criticisms on that front, but it's ridiculous to have a constant back and forth on this when nothing will change and nothing's going to bring those children back.
All right, here's what I want to do. I'm going to move on in the interest of fairness, because part of what I want to do today is call out some really fucking nasty shit I've seen. But and because I want to be consistent and do it all around, and these people are just as deserving, if not more, to be called out, I have a compilation of all the really fucked up shit that Western politicians, mostly politicians, some here like this guy. I mean, this is a rally, you know, this is a pro-Israel protest in New York. Just listen to what this guy has to say.
To my dick! What do you think the response should be from Netanyahu and the military?
We haven't seen this.
Palestinians, all of them. Now,
So, like, that's crazy, obviously. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
The confidence
barbaric.
to just say that on camera.
Yeah.
I mean, why
There was
why would
worse
he
ones
feel-
in
There
the-
is
in
a
the
level of
compilation,
comfort
too.
in saying that,
Yeah.
more so than saying,
What, kill all Israelis,
Yeah,
kill
Right.
all
all
Jews?
Israelis.
Yeah, of course.
there's definitely way more
He's like
acceptable
no
thing to say.
hesitation there, right into the
somehow.
camera.
Yeah.
No mask.
His
The thing
face is there. He's
the
probably
thing
got a
is, why
job.
would
Yeah.
he say that? Is that might be a Kahanis flag, I think, too, the one that he's
What
putting
is
up.
that?
one left from the river to the sea.
I can't
Palestine
see.
will be deceased. And Israel need to do
I'm not
like
the one
this.
streaming this
This
stream.
whole
Surfer.
No.
shit. Yeah, I've heard this a million times. But
the-
anyway, so that was one.
you
I just
know,
want to blast through these.
The flag that I think he's waving is a Kahanis flag, which is of course the psychopathic terrorist cult
Super far right.
led by the insane Meir Kahan, the rabbi, which Itamar Ben-Gvir is a part of his cult and is a defender of.
Here is Lindsey Graham, the fucking demon.
By the way, that's a
himself.
terrorist organization by American standards. Literally, America has declared that to be a terror organization, as a terrorist organization by Israeli standards as well, and that is the reason why Itamar Ben-Gvir was not allowed to serve in the IDF. So remember that, like, you know, no matter how conservative or no matter how ultra Zionist you might be, even Israeli conservatives are like, that's too far, that's too fucked up. Now that guy runs the police force, and Benjamin Netanyahu gave him a Praetorian Guard, or said offered him concessions on building out a Praetorian Guard specifically for him.
Netanyahu's going to be remembered like the man. He wanted this legacy of being Israel's protector so bad. He served for what, like 13 years? People are going to spit on his fucking grave, dude. Anyway, here's Lindsey Graham on Fox News, international news, the most popular news show in America, I think.
We're in a religious war here. I am with Israel. Do whatever the hell you have to do to defend yourself. Level the place. We're in a religious war.
Psychotic.
So, but the first guy that we showed, and what he's saying is also exactly what's going on in Gaza. So that is why I always say there is no equivalence here. Like there is no
as much. And
there is no power or no like serious no genuine and
yeah, it's horrifying. He was actually condemned by a lot of right-wing accounts for that. I saw
this kind of wanton indifference and this kind of like callous celebration of like genociding all Jewish people, which is completely unjustifiable.
Thank you very much for the $5 donor, worship of the Olympians. This is live right now,
like,
so I'm not turning away from it. But
no
I'll check out whatever you wanted me to check out in a couple
the,
seconds or when it's over.
There's no equivalent on the Palestinian side.
You're right. You're right.
And it's not and it's not represented in the media or reflected in any way at all.
I understand what you're saying. And the crazy thing here is that these people are posting it on their social media. This is Nikki Haley posted this on her YouTube. Lindsey Graham posted that clip. That motherfucker clipped that because he
posted it himself.
Right? He posted that on Twitter.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
It's not just Republicans, by the way. Democrats
This
have
is
said
the worst
similar.
I found.
Democrats have said similar things as well. I mean, what's his name from the Problem Solvers Caucus? Gottheimer, Josh Gottheimer. They were having a closed door meeting, and he could be heard screaming that like, all Muslims. What was it? That's a Democrat. Oh, here, I'll show you. I'll read it.
Meanwhile, here, let me play this Nikki Haley video. Message to Netanyahu.
And what we have to understand is this is the reason that we have to unite around making sure our enemies do not hurt our...
I do have to say, also looking at this, it strikes me as a little bit silly that they're showing... Oh, God damn it, it's so fucking slow. That they're showing like a, essentially a hole in the ground as evidence for, the
leveling
damage,
the city,
the damage that Hamas has done, versus like the shots of Gaza, where like literally entire city blocks are demolished. It does strike me as a little fucking goofy.
Sure our enemies do not hurt our friends. America can never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends, just like we needed them on 9/11. That's why Ukraine needs us when Russia's doing this. That's why Israel needs us when...
There's like some playground politics.
That is the most
you need
disgusting.
Friends.
That is the
We
most
need
disgusting
friends.
comparison. Like the fact that every fucking Ukrainian official has come out and been like, wow, what Palestinians are doing is exactly what the Russians are doing to Ukraine is so fucking, oh my God, I don't even want to get into it. Okay, I don't
Let me
even wanna
finish
talk
this
about
video.
that.
Yeah.
Dogs.
Hamas and Iran are doing this, and I'll say this to Prime Minister Netanyahu, finish them. Finish them. Hamas did this,
I mean, that's fucking crazy. And I mean, again, the result of this shit, of these terrorist attacks is basically, the world, the Western world being like, here's your blank check to kill as many fucking Palestinians as you want.
It's so 9/11 again. It's so scary.
This only works when
that hopefully might be a moment of reflection too, because a lot of people online I saw were going after Frogan, like intentionally asking, why won't you condemn Hamas? Why won't you condemn Hamas? And it was like, we're doing the exact same things that we were doing after 9/11. Any single person who's Muslim, visibly Muslim, proudly Muslim, openly Muslim, before you're allowed to speak of this or speak on this or talk about this topic, we need that initial, hey, but do you condemn? But we need to know, do you condemn? What was your condemnation?
Only one side of the conflict gets coverage in the eyes of the American population. They would do this on Fox regardless. It only works because of the insanely Islamophobic sentiment that is just so commonplace since the post 9/11 universe that we exist in. And not only that, but also that's why the conflation of Palestinians and Hamas is one that is by design, because the victims are still the Palestinians. It's not Hamas, and there is no way to effectively neuter or destroy Hamas with an endless bombing campaign in Gaza. The only way to destroy the influence that Hamas has is by starving it out. And I don't mean literally by starving the entire Gaza Strip. Starving Hamas and ridding it of its influence requires you to treat Palestinians with dignity and offer them equality and follow through on the former promises that the international community has made and turned a blind eye to Israel not following their commitments on.
Fully agree with what you said. Like, again, it's important for everyone to acknowledge that Hamas is the result of, Israel's treatment.
Argonian bum.
of
Thank
the
you so much for the raid. We'll go to
And it's just- you're right. If
twitch.tv/Argonian
you-
bum.
the-
Appreciate it.
And I think it's obvious, but I guess people don't want to confront it. But the obvious solution is to don't give them a reason to turn to terrorists. Pretty obvious. But there it is. Here's Marco Rubio. There can be no ceasefire, negotiated solutions, or peaceful coexistence with depraved barbarians who murder teenage girls, children, the elderly, and then dump them in the streets of Gaza so bloodthirsty crowds can desecrate their bodies. Hamas must be eradicated, and Israel must respond disproportionately, in all caps, to this and any future
Marco
attacks
has
from the enemy.
been
I mean, what
one
he's
of
doing
the
here is
worse people
like the
in how they're
Hamas.
talking about this.
The Hamas murderers are 1,000% barbarians who murdered children, teenage girls, which specifically he has a problem with. He goes, who murdered teenage girls? What about teenage boys? We don't care about them. Just like, it's a weird focus. What, right? Anytime,
a little odd.
Anytime you call out
odd.
teenage girls in any context, I'm gonna raise an eyebrow.
Check his hard drive.
He just likes them.
Yeah. By the way,
But to finish my point, he was saying he's conflating Hamas, who are bloodthirsty murderers, to justify killing Palestinians disproportionately. And again, like, I don't know if they, like, the videos that I saw that made me emotional before of the Palestinian dad, with his daughter holding her like this, like she was like gray and fucking dead, like an 8-month-old baby.
Yeah.
Like a beautiful newborn, innocent, beautiful child. Like, I don't know if and he's this man. I don't know if Marco Rubio has ever seen anything like that, or if it would change him. But I can't imagine that seeing that would not have an impact on these fucking ghouls to see what they're actually wishing for.
It might not be impactful for Marco Rubio, but it certainly would be impactful for many people who are completely oblivious to what's going on, which is precisely the reason why that never gets any coverage. This isn't to say that Israeli civilian casualties are acceptable or good. It's just that there is coverage on that endlessly, understandably, and never any coverage on the humanity of Gazans. I've talked about another aspect of this too. We in the Western world live in the comfort of the imperial core, and we live in a comfortable security blanket. So for us, if we live in like Connecticut or Iowa or whatever, of course we empathize significantly more with Israelis that were attacked by this horde of scary Muslims. Like, of course we empathize with that on a spiritual level because we can't understand the entire building blocks being removed. It is far too alien for us to comprehend the fear and the reality of that kind of devastation. We look at that and we go, oh, this is just like Baghdad, which is an enemy that deserved it in the minds of Americans. So that is also another reason why I think Americans are immediately and unconditionally in support of, the Israeli occupation.
Here's Ben Shapiro. I mean, no surprise here, obviously, but still.
Oh, he's been baying for blood nonstop.
I mean, here's a video. The UN Special Reporter for Human Rights in Palestine. We are horrified by what's happening, and we are calling for a truce. And here's a video of, Gaza being bombed by missiles. And then Ben, and his infinite empathy and human
He's the same guy in
nature
2010
told them
said
that they
Arabs
can fuck
live in
right
open
off.
sewage, settlements rock.
And like, this is such, all these people, but looking at Ben, I mean, it's such a lack of human empathy. It's like, it's just fucking evil, man. But there it is. That's Benny Boy. And one more. Again, no surprises here, but Charlie Kirk.
These people betray principles of Judaism and centuries of Jewish history of always siding with those who have been oppressed, always being at the forefront of social justice and fighting for emancipation for all people. It's really, really, really disgusting to see that. 100%.
I didn't want to read this one. So, basically, showing all these ghouls feeling very comfortable with no pushback, expressing their desire for genocide. And Western media.
Charlie Kirk has just fucking gone full force.
Oh, here is
wants war with Iran.
An Israeli. Hold on. Who said this? Okay, so here it is in Hebrew. This was from an unnamed defense official told Israel's Channel 13 that the Palestinian territory, home to more 2 million residents, would be reduced to rubble. Quote, Gaza will eventually turn into a city of tents. There will be no buildings. The ground maneuver will surprise Hamas, the official said in a stark warning to the terrorist group behind the weekend assault that killed more than 1,200 Israelis.
I mean, the Israeli defense minister literally said, we're shutting off the electricity, we're shutting off the food supply.
I don't understand
And we're
that.
shutting off the water into Gaza because we are not,
punishment.
we're fighting human animals. Or a better translation, I think, was beasts. Like, but ultimately, though, that's collective punishment. It is a violation of the Geneva Suggestions. I don't want to call it conventions. It is. This has happened for far too long. You can't attack the press. You can't attack, medics. They killed. There was the Red Crescent guy who was crying in his ambulance because he could not.
Yeah,
he'd seen far too much death and destruction, and a couple hours later, he got bombed. They allowed him to enter a site of the rubble, a site of the bombings, and they bombed him and killed him. Like a couple hours later.
Okay, so
directly just a violation.
At this time, I want to turn my attention to some of the very evil takes I've heard some prominent folks making about Israelis. Here is one such example of a dude, and this guy is very popular. He has 1.6 million subscribers. He is a very popular political YouTuber.
I can't see anything.
Called Second Thought. Sorry, this.
Oh yeah, he's my friend. I like JT.
All right. Well then, you tell me what you think about this. He said, "What's going on in occupied Palestine is unprecedented. No doubt we'll have wall."
Is it on? Wait, hold on. I don't have my glasses today.
It's just the.
I'm not gonna be able to see it. I just had to click on it so I can read it.
Things are about to get intense.
But go ahead. You can read it out. You can read it out loud.
Here, you know what? Let me show you this.
Is it on the Google Doc?
Let me show you the video first. This will be easier for you. He basically says the same thing here. So here he is doing a podcast.
I've been on. I think is this Deprogram? I've been on the podcast.
I don't know what it's called, but this is just a clip from
Yeah.
So here's his take on this, and let's listen.
And thank you very much. He says, did the Palestinians actually take civilian hostage, or is that fake news? I don't care.
Yeah, the occupiers are not civilian.
First of all, just straight off the bat.
The person that's talking is Hakim. He is a doctor in Iraq, and of course, just to put this into a decent frame of reference for those who are unfamiliar, I think he will probably have a much more ruthless position on the matter, considering how he feels about American forces and what they've done to his
This
home
I'm pretty
and
sure is
family.
all Second Thought.
No, the one who said.
No, I know. But
Yeah.
Here.
And thank you very much. He says, did the Palestinians actually take civilian hostage, or is that fake news?
So wait, who's talking there?
That's Hakim.
Okay, so Second Thought's the one who says, "I don't care," and laughs.
I can't, wait, say it.
I don't care.
This
No,
guy.
that's Hakim.
I don't.
The guy with the accent.
Yeah, that's Hakim. Second Thought is an American.
So Second Thought is the guy who's asking the question.
No, Hakim is the one who read it. He's reading it from chat. It's a
Thank you
super
very much.
chat.
Did the Palestinians actually take civilian hostage, or is that fake news? I don't care.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, he agrees with him. So let's just fucking listen
go
to
on.
the clip.
The occupiers
I
are
don't-
not civilians. That is what it comes
Yeah.
down to. Like if imagine
French-
like if
Sorry, go on.
Germany, let's say Germany to be
That's him, right?
I think, yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
controversial.
And not that it matters.
invaded
I'm
United States, and they said, you know what, Cincinnati, Ohio is our ancestral home, and everyone knows that's blatantly false. But they take your home, they murder your grandma, they bulldoze like your neighbor's house. Are those people civilians there? No, they're occupiers, and those are criminals. There are no civilians there. In the
So according to Second Thought, he says that every Israeli is an occupier, and there are no citizens there. In response to decapitating babies, which I can now say.
There are two different schools of thought here. So the first is,
and the take in the comments is based.
Yeah, of course. The 1948ers believe that there's two different schools of thought within, I would say, anti-Zionism. Those who believe that all matter of settlements that were propped up even in the inception of the Israeli nation state are unjustifiable, and that they are settlers. So they extend beyond your perspective that you agree with, which is because West Bank is a settler occupation.
I think it's an extremely evil thing to say, what he said.
Let me ask you this.
No. What do you think? What he said is evil?
I think it is, one, unproductive, and two, it does not meet the realities on the ground, and it's not a viable solution.
So calling, or just
it never speaks to kids.
Calling babies.
No, of course not.
Settlers.
Of course,
and they're not even living.
They're not.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
they're babies.
So I just want to say,
I have a question for you.
that this guy's a fucking evil piece of shit for saying that.
Can I ask you a question?
Can I finish? Let me finish the
Okay,
video.
we'll finish this, but I do have a question for you, because I think you're going to agree with something I'm about to say.
Yes. Let's just finish it and then we'll talk.
Invaded the United States, and they said, you know what, Cincinnati, Ohio is our ancestral home, and everyone knows that's blatantly false. But they take your home, they murder your grandma, they bulldoze like your neighbor's house. Are those people civilians there? No, they're occupiers, and those are criminals. There are no civilians there in the illegal military occupation.
Yeah. So that's number one.
I mean, that's so callous. It's kind of hard to fucking even believe just how flippant he can be about calling babies militants that are deserving to be killed.
Very beautifully put. Number two, much more importantly, the track record of Palestinians has been 1,000 times better than that of the Israeli occupation, despite the fact that Israeli occupation does not need to brutalize. They already have all the power, but they still choose to do far worse. The worst that will happen to a person in Palestinian custody is that they're going to be like auctioned off for a prisoner swap, which is the historic track record also.
And of course,
he's not wrong about this. This is the original goal for the military, the excursion. At least if you believe.
I'm not exactly having a ton of faith in the dudes that decapitated babies to treating their POWs really well.
Well,
I think that's kind of a psychotic take too, where it's like why are you trying to give Hamas the benefit of the doubt?
I feel like we made so much progress, and now we're just being like,
oh, they treat their prisoners fucking awesome. Let's not try to do that.
Okay. So,
but anyway, and that combined with just the callous, the laughter.
Listen.
Hold on.
Did the Palestinians actually take civilian hostage, or is that fake news? I don't care.
Okay.
And they're laughing about it.
Let me pose a question for you.
Go ahead.
So you have said that those in the West Bank are fundamentalist settlers. Are you familiar with the international law surrounding the justifiable forms of violence towards?
So first of all,
terror.
I don't put any stock, frankly, in whatever these quote international laws are.
Yeah, it's.
But no, I'm not familiar with whatever that says.
Technically, the reason why the IDF has to exist in the West Bank and behave in the oppressive manner that they behave is because Palestinians, and this is going to sound very radical and possibly very violent, but this is a matter of law, and maybe even if you agree with this, a matter of morality. Palestinians have the legal ground to violently seize back their own homes from the settlers. This is a reality, and that is precisely the reason why they have to exist under endless occupation in the West Bank.
You know what? And that's why I say if it was settlers, that would be a lot more understandable. Yeah. But let's not obfuscate, okay? I understand what you're saying. But this dude just called babies militants.
No, I understand. And there are baby settlers as well. But there are baby settlers as well. There are babies in the settlements.
But the babies that killed were not.
I know.
Okay, so
here's now that we established that.
Yeah.
No, hold on. Now that we established that, the other school of thought here is that all matter of Israelis living on Israel proper are they're also doing the exact same thing in the eyes of some. I do not agree with that because I don't think that is a reasonable solution, and it's not realistic anyway, and that only will lead to the complete evisceration of Palestinians, and far-right Israelis will use that to continuously radicalize just regular Israeli citizens in their endless bombing campaigns and ethnic cleansing campaigns and the brutal occupation. This is why many thinkers, I believe even including Norm Finkelstein, who has dedicated his entire life to speaking the truth about Israel's occupation, and Noam Chomsky and many others, even Edward Said, as I brought up earlier, believe that the de-Zionification or the displacement of Israelis from Israel proper, Jewish Israelis, is not it's not justifiable and it's not realistic. It's more so a single state solution, at least one that I advocate for, because I know a lot of people advocate for a two-state solution. I'm a one-stater, which
was there a question?
What?
I thought you said I have a question for you at the beginning of that.
I gave you the question. You already answered it. You said I know your position on like violently seizing back your land from settler occupiers.
Yeah, that's not what they did though. And that's
these
who
guys.
he's talking
No, these guys, or at least I assume second thought has the perspective that all matter of Israel is all matter of Israel proper is considered settler occupation.
And he's evil for thinking that. He is. Right after babies were murdered and decapitated.
All
I can say that now.
Let me
read his further.
If he said this in 1949, I'd have a different opinion on the matter. You can't say this in 2023. I agree.
Let me read this. Thank you for agreeing. What's going on in occupied Palestine is unprecedented. No doubt we'll have wall-to-wall coverage of atrocities now that it's the genocidal settlers on the receiving end. This is what liberation struggle looks like. Solidarity and victory to the Palestinian people. Again, just to put the timing in frame here, he says, no doubt we'll have wall-to-wall coverage when Israel responds. This is while bodies are still bleeding.
Oh, I guess the second part did come true. He wasn't wrong on the second part of that conversation, at least. Okay.
What, solidarity and victory to the which part are we referring to?
Wall-to-wall coverage when Israel responds.
Right, but like, and this is my problem. So as the bodies are fucking still bleeding out, and he's saying this is what liberation struggle looks like.
Thank you for the $5 dono worshippers.
Burning families alive. Solidarity and victory to the Palestinian people. This is pro-Hamas. This man is supporting Hamas.
I think his position is that people that have been trapped, and I can't speak for him, but you can if you want to talk to him. I'm sure he would be willing to come on and speak his piece. I've already mentioned that I don't find this to be particularly helpful or productive as far as this conversation goes. Not because I
mean, really trying to paint Hasan into a corner here, but if you want to come at the perspective from productivity, focus on this. If we had social media the way we do now back then, after 9/11 and in a post 9/11, days after it happened, or literally the day of, right, on 9/11, if you were posting on social media, that's incredible, that's based, it's necessary, this is the American empire is getting what it had coming to them, the American empire is finally getting what it deserves, look what's happening. What occurred directly after 9/11 was, perhaps one of the quickest I've seen the international community suddenly accept a lot of the imperial policies of the United States, including first an illegal invasion of Afghanistan and then following an illegal invasion of Iraq. And if you want to say it's unproductive, that might be from the perspective of, podcasters or streamers or stuff like myself. We're all incredibly safe and comfortable over here in the West watching all this shit and giving our opinions, and that kind of fuel and fodder will give you know, someone an opportunity to be like, yeah, but look at what you know, the left is saying is where I can see, yes, it is unproductive to completely frame it that way when the eyes of the world are in this position where, like, right now what needs focus is people need to wake the fuck up at what is actually happening in Gaza. They need to be able to see that, and they need to be able to be told stories, because you can see what happens in real time. It happened in this actual live debate when someone learns about it for the first time, when someone hadn't heard about that, when someone hadn't heard about an innocent reporter, an American citizen, by the way, getting killed, and then at the funeral procession, people getting beaten on the streets for wanting to attend a funeral. That is the true atrocities and horrors that people in Gaza deal with every day. That is what people need to be able to see. And if you on the other end are either, and I'm not saying that, you know, JT is in this tweet, but if you're someone online who's exclusively trying to do the, you know, like, fucking all settlers had it coming, look at this, the you know, the settlers will die in the flames of freedom and stuff like that, and you happen to be a white person living in Minnesota or some shit like that, then yeah, it's going to lead to all of a sudden more you know, fucking people on the other end being like, yeah, look at how fucking people are responding to this, look at how people are responding. Because to mainstream media right now, there is one narrative and one narrative alone: I stand with Israel. That's what we are seeing it everywhere. I stand with Israel. Every fucking politician. There was one politician in Canada. It was a Muslim woman who has disabilities, and she spoke out against what is going on and asking for an end to apartheid and occupation, and she got called out by her own party, and she has subsequently issued an apology and a retraction. Like, that's simply for stating that there should be an end to an occupation and apartheid. Not saying that I celebrate the horrifying actions of Hamas, not saying anything like that. That was it. That was enough for, again, the NDP. They're supposed to be the sock dems in this country. You can see what people are terrified to say, why people who in the past, celebrities who may have been you know, unequivocally supporting you know, Palestinian efforts, are now just being like, I'm so saddened to see what I see before me. There has been horrifying carnage on both sides. I really hope that we can see an end to violence. You know, that's as far as anyone is willing to go right now.
I am tasked with defending the positions of other people or even criticize them. It's more so that we know what is currently happening. We are now 3-4 days removed from October 7, and we know what the retaliation looked like, and we know what the occupation has looked like every single day.
That was an obvious reaction.
So that's why I'm saying,
again,
that's what I'm saying. Like a
timing matters.
A YouTuber with
hold on, this guy's influential.
No, I know, Ethan, but his influence is nothing in comparison to the multi-billion-dollar media operation.
I just want to call this guy out. That's what I want to do.
You can call him out.
I just spent
and you can ask
2.5 hours calling out Israel. So now this guy, second thought, he's supporting Hamas. He is pro-Hamas. That's what
call him out.
Hold on.
Okay.
Solidarity and victory to the Palestinian people. Oops. Again, the timing that I keep mentioning, as bodies are being counted, is pro-Hamas. That's it. That's it. There's no other way to interpret that, and it's evil. He continues, imagine someone comes to your town, murders your neighbors, kicks you out of the home your family lived in for generations, and relocates you.
That's not what he's saying.
Are those occupiers civilians? No, they're criminals and accomplices in genocide. Once again, referring to babies who were decapitated. At least, but again, that doesn't matter. 40 babies died at this kibbutz. Okay, kids also, children, families. Peaceful kibbutzim. Many of them actually
I completely disagree with this as a blanket statement, because yes, again, there are children who have no understanding of what is taking place right now, and yes, I do not endorse in any way, you know, the killing of innocent civilians. But this is not saying you know, I side with Hamas at the same time. Like, I think that's also
Palestine advocates
also reach.
He said that they are criminals and accomplices.
Okay, we don't know if they were pro-Palestine advocates. Let's not go that far.
What? That's
what you
think that none of the people killed were.
I mean, I don't know that. I'm saying, like, I don't know why you're adding that. It doesn't even matter, because ultimately.
No, it does matter.
They shouldn't die.
Okay, right.
My position.
But it does make it especially ironic when he's calling them accomplices in general.
But yeah, okay. So if you like focus on this for a sec, who holds more power? Who's like more worthy of condemnation? Right. The second thought, the YouTuber or the actions of governments. And like if you look at the scale of this. Again, I thought there was like so much productivity at the start of this because like when you actually start to realize what has been going on, especially on the ground for so long, then the very idea of wanting to go after individuals specifically for their takes when it's like what is literally happening on the ground right now, like Gaza as this debate is taking place is being cut off from fuel, food, electricity, hospitals no longer have power, shit like that, and again the very, very little reporting on the daily suffering of Palestinians in Gaza compared to the overwhelming fucking support for the actions of the Israeli government in all mainstream media right now.
Genocide when their only crime is being born somewhere.
No, I agree with you.
It's evil. I just want to say that.
I agree with you.
Okay, good.
I don't disagree with you on this at all.
Thank you.
But that's not my. But.
Bro, I'm just calling it out.
Okay,
this guy's a fucking. He's a scumbag.
If you want, you have the opportunity. You can speak to him if you want on this this particular issue.
I'll think about it. But
so I don't know why you're.
I'm not demanding you respond, but I simply, as a matter of doing this show, want to call out the people that disgusted me, because again, I hear this all the time. People go, "Oh, really? Well, show me an example."
I know, but
here's one.
No, of course there are examples of this. It's just entirely and utterly inconsequential, and I 100% stand by that.
It's not. He's an influential man. When you're expressing.
But the first three people you were showing on the other side were politicians. They were lawmakers, American lawmakers. It's like, so here's three American lawmakers saying this, and then here's podcaster / YouTuber. Second thought. And by the way, he does have a massive YouTube channel. I've interviewed him on my show before. He's a very large content producer for sure. But like, if you're going to be showing lawmakers, let's see other lawmakers. If you're going to be showing shit takes by YouTubers, let's see other shit takes by YouTubers. Because that was how this whole segment was proposed.
Okay, let's walk through that. What do you think is the negative consequence of this? Do you think that people are going to see this and go, "Oh, I should go to a..."
So should I not care about it?
I think that if you look at the reality, and I know you recognize it, a YouTuber saying this kind of thing and spending any time or any effort on this, when your moral position is clear, when mine is clear, spending any time on this whatsoever to be like, we got to clean up our own homes here, deviates from the actual message that must be unflinching. The message is that these violent means of ensuring that the occupation continues is going to inevitably lead to more violence that Israelis will be subjected to as well.
Normalizing murdering civilians.
He has no capacity to do so.
And the result of that,
I think a better argument would be that it's anti-Semitic. You could say that, well, not what he's saying, but that it could lead to people listening to what he's saying and then think that all Jews are responsible.
Okay,
and
so
think
it's
that
consequential. The stuff that he's saying matters.
That would
But
be.
my point is, if I can finish my point, is that this guy who proposes to be this Palestinian advocate, he is encouraging the murder of civilians, babies, etc. In an effort to free the occupation.
I don't think he's encouraging it. I think he's justifying it.
No. No, he says, hold on. No, he says this is what liberation struggle looks like. What's the liberation struggle about murdering families?
Cedar Sklar says, this is so hard to watch as an anti-Zionist Jew with family in Israel. I empathize so much with Ethan's pain, and this is really a shock to so many Jews' perceptions of safety in Israel. But to watch that pain not be directed at the murderous occupying force that lied to us and used us, our families, our generational trauma, all in the name of enforcing apartheid. All of this pain is real, but without recognizing the occupation as the root cause of the pain can't heal. It can just be used for more violence. Baruch Hashem, Palestine will be free within our lifetimes.
But I wanted to say this. This guy who purports to care so much about Palestine, his advocating for killing civilians, the result of that is going to be basically what's happening in Gaza now, which is that Israel, which is, again, genocidal, violent, psychopathic.
Whoa, Netanyahu's propaganda minister just resigned. Galit Dissel. Has that been confirmed?
People in power are, it's like the result of this is Netanyahu gets more power and consolidates when people already fucking hated him. The international community,
it's on Israeli national news,
that was giving a lot of general support for
Israel.
Palestine and Gaza and all that.
No,
there was a lot of I know you're going to debate me. There was a lot of sentiment, especially in Europe, for being like, "Yo, we need to,
Ethan,
we need to look at this."
The entire planet, the entire planet has regularly condemned the illegal occupation time and time again. You know who has said "fuck off" to that? The United States of America and Israel, and sometimes Ukraine. So it does not matter what the condemnation even looks like. It doesn't change anything. Palestinians.
Let me finish my
Okay,
point.
go ahead. Finish your point.
The point is that the result of this, these people are pro-Palestine. The result of this is literally the opposite of any possible intended consequence, which is Netanyahu gets more power internationally and domestically when people already fucking hated him and his government. The Western countries are basically backing up Israel's genocide and encouraging it and sanctioning it. The Gazans are now being bombed. Their food, power, water is being shut off, although that happens regardless at times.
Always.
But so like
if the argument here is that if Second Thought had not tweeted this, or if other YouTubers and other people on Twitter had not tweeted their celebrations, that do we think that the world's perspective would be different on Israel's bombing campaign currently? If you think that, like, legitimately, if not a single person had tweeted this, do you think that the situation on the ground would be different?
Does it matter to you that this might be anti-Semitic?
Oh, wait, what do you mean?
Well, you're saying you're treating this as if it doesn't matter at all, and that's
yes,
you're not
I
Jewish,
don't think it matters at all.
and you're not Israeli.
Yeah, I don't think it matters at all in the grand scheme of things whatsoever.
So you're saying
because the question I
hold
posed
on. Your point.
Answer my question,
Go ahead.
please. Let's say JT and Hakeem or any number of different Twitter users had not been so callous in their indifference for civilian casualties in this situation. Not a single person had tweeted anything. Do you think that there would be more support for Palestinians?
Obviously not, but listen to
so
what
why
I'm
are we
saying,
having this
bro.
conversation then?
He's influencing people. He's not. Is this tweet going to change what's happening on the ground? No.
No, of course
But these opinions being broadcast by respected people in politics is going to contribute to fucking more violence. He is.
In what regard?
Because people
like,
who
you think
sympathize
Palestinians
with him are gonna be like, yeah. I mean, he's basically.
Do you think Palestinians are going to see JT's
no, the
tweets?
acceptance of people, and that's fucking.
But then, like, call him out. Then that's, you have a platform. You've got a massive platform as well. I'm watching you for the exact same reasons right now because, yes, you have a huge platform. Tens of thousands of people are watching this live. Obviously, yes, it can influence, especially younger viewers and stuff. And if that's your opinion, then use your platform to call him out, and that's what you've done. And then can we move on to the next thing?
Anti-Semitism, bro.
The acceptance of what people?
The acceptance of people internationally who look at this guy saying, let's fucking kill all these.
I again think it's completely disproportionate. I again think that, like, this is fucking just a situation where, again, year fucking round, all the shit you see in mainstream media is 100% tailored towards supporting Israel and supporting the Israeli government and the Israeli army in what they're doing. There's so little coverage ever paid in any form of media outside of very, very independent sources about just the daily suffering of Palestinians, and that's something that, like, no one focuses on. And that, yes, when people have takes online, people will hyper focus on those more than they will criticize the actions of the Israeli government.
Israelis because they're all occupiers.
I don't agree with that take. That he's making.
I'm being
here.
hyperbolic. But it's not that far from what he said. I mean, he's called every Israeli an accomplice in genocide and an occupier.
It's like freaking out. It's like freaking out when the Iranian leadership like fucking burns an American flag or whatever and be like, they hate us. They're gonna come for us. They're gonna kill all of us. Like there is no conversation to be had here that is like serious because,
Bro,
like,
I just disagree. I mean, you were telling me today how much influence I have. Why does it not matter that people use this?
The
kind
influence
of
you have is upon
This
your
man has
fan
influence.
base. The influence you have
And
upon
that
your
doesn't matter?
The influence you have upon your fan base was specifically in regards to okay. Let me dial it back real quick and explain something. This is a basic fundamental that I believe in. I believe that our culture and our attitudes are entirely reflected on the material realities on the ground, that our material realities guide our culture and our attitude towards certain things. I don't believe that you can move the needle in the other direction. I don't believe that you can tweet a revolution. As a matter of fact, many people laugh at hashtag activism and whatnot, but I do think that it goes in the opposite direction. I do think that you can't, make a super sweet YouTube video that ends up destroying the white supremacist court structure in the United States of America. However, I do believe that if you go in the other direction and promote more of the state-sponsored violence, you absolutely can motivate people to feel more justified and demand more from their governments.
Which is what he's
and
doing,
to do this.
right?
So if and only if there was a real, legitimate, well-established military machine that was capable of going and fucking killing every single Israeli citizen, like you said, he is justifying for, this would be as damaging as the average Israeli defense of the Israeli occupying force. Only then.
I just find it odd
And
that you
even
have
then,
to do the
and
whole what
even
about
then,
thing about this.
But Ethan, even then, there is no comparison because guess what? What he is saying as a singular YouTuber is represented by our elected leaders, is represented in the reality on the ground, in the way that Israel is continuing its occupation and its bombing campaign in Gaza, which is why I think it is utterly and entirely a distraction to have assessments, to make assessments over.
Listen, I'm sorry that I care about it. I guess I'm just an emotional fucking idiot.
I'm not saying that at all. I perfectly understand why you care about it.
But it's important to me.
I understand why you care about it.
I disagree with that premise.
I think you should have him on to
clearly
ask
you
him.
disagree with
I think you should
his
have him on to ask him. Because I personally disagree with this assessment.
Yeah.
And I think it's unhelpful and unproductive overall.
Okay.
But
we agree. But I think he's evil.
But I also will point once again that what he's saying here is the Israeli policy in the other direction. It has been the reality in the other direction.
Which is not good.
I know you don't agree with that, but I'm saying because you don't agree with that, it is...
This is the main problem I'm having with all this stuff.
I know that's the main problem you have with all this stuff, and that's why I'm trying to say it's not even remotely a point of contention, and it's not even remotely equivalent, and it's not even remotely
I don't think people should be
have this conversation.
This guy is way too comfortable just going out there publicly and being applauded.
What do you think is the solution here? What should be done with him for saying that?
What criticism doesn't stand on its own? Why do I need to be punitive?
Well, no, you said you're upset. I mean, I think you're well within your right to be
criticizing.
critical.
I'm criticizing. I'm not asking for.
I think you're well within your right to be critical of it.
Yeah.
Like I said, though, I will reaffirm my position that if he was saying this about Palestinians instead of Israelis, that would not only be not condemned at all by a singular person, that would be the specific policy position of the entirety of the Western world.
Israelis and the Western world are monsters, then we shouldn't care when the opposite people are monsters, because it doesn't matter.
Not necessarily.
Well,
I think because
seems like what you're arguing.
No, that's not what I'm saying, because I don't agree with what he's saying regardless.
But why does it matter then? If we're just taking this comment, and I just want to point it out for the evil it is, like, why does it? I just don't understand the need.
I told you this already. Any issue to be taken up with Westerners and the optics of like what they are saying should be talked about with respect to the impact that those words will have. Which is why I said, if you think that this is genuinely going to be impactful, then that's another conversation to have.
I think it matters. I mean, I wouldn't say it doesn't matter. But anyway, clearly you don't agree, and that's just my opinion on the guy.
I do not agree with his assessment. Yes.
And so let's see. Moving on to, I mean, we've talked about.
But I think you would agree with his assessment if he was talking about settlers in the West Bank, though, right?
What Hasan is trying to say right now is that, like, in one direction, if you're saying something, whether it be a good take or a shitty take, is that statement in service of upholding systems or structures of power that already exist that are incredibly and infinitely more powerful than, say, a single YouTuber? And in what direction is that person going? Not that it forgives someone having or making very shitty takes or saying things that you fundamentally disagree with, which, yes, I as well disagree with, just trying to characterize any single civilian or child that's killed as a justified settlers. Like, you know, I've never agreed with that take. I think people, especially children, are born into situations that they themselves have no awareness of until later in life. So yeah, but in which direction does the criticisms? Again, he said he wanted to call out bad takes. When Ethan was showing bad takes, he showed 3 politicians, lawmakers in the United States of fucking America, the most powerful nation on earth, who do wield significant power. Absolutely. It is infinitely more horrifying to see Lindsey Graham saying that we're in the middle of a holy war, right? In contrast to that, then show a politician, you know, saying similar sentiments to second thought.
Right?
I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say that, you know,
kill babies in the West Bank. Of course you wouldn't say that.
But like theoretically, I don't think settlers are civilians.
They're not.
But
they
he's
are not
talking about
recognized
all
as civilians by international law. They are technically considered terrorists.
That's an important
I agree.
distinction that he's not making.
The distinction that he is making is that he's going by, he's talking like it's 1952. You know what I mean? That's the difference. And it's not 1952. You can't make this assessment.
Thank you.
All right. Are there more wrongs committed by Americans who are speaking on Palestine that we can go through? I'm down to go through more of it if you have more.
This is a massive rally in Sydney, Australia. And again, we bring up the issue of like it's inconsequential. Well, according to this massive rally outside the Sydney Opera House, they're not making a distinction between Israelis and Jews, actually. I'll play it for you. Gas the Jews.
Yeah, if there's like, I don't know where this footage is from, if it's 100% accurate. Yes, if people are chanting "Gas the Jews," it's obviously horrifying, and I'm sure Hasan is going to condemn it. And then what now? Another clip of which, who is on the other side of this?
Etc. etc.
This is the out of everything that you've shown me, this is demonstrably the worst. Like, because this has genuine impact on the ground in whatever nation that we're talking about. That is unequivocally and uncritically anti-Semitic, completely indefensible. No,
and
like
horrifying.
no additions to that
Can I
whatsoever.
ask you a question then?
What?
Let's say that one of this,
and that does lead to, I think, furthering anti-Semitic, and it not only is it unproductive, but that does, I think, lead to a real and tangible impact on the ground.
So let me ask you this.
What's up?
A fan of Second Thought who's listened to him dehumanizing Israelis that way, do you think that listening to him might inspire one of those people to be like, hey, I'm going to go join this, you know.
What, Hamas?
Slippery slope.
Well, no, I mean, it's a according to it's a pro-Palestine.
You think a fan of Second Thought's going to see it? Okay, let's walk through it. You think a fan of Second Thought's going to see that and be like, I'm going to go to Gaza, I'm going to join Hamas?
That's not what I said. I said he's going to go down to the Upper Sydney at this location and be like, hey, yeah, fuck, let's gas the Jews. Everyone's saying it. Nobody seems to care.
I guess it could happen, certainly.
Okay.
Okay. But once again, I mean, this is fucking gross, by the way, 100%. It's just ridiculous. It's disgusting. What I was going to say is, I'm still thinking about a second thought YouTube fan being like, I'm going to go rise up in the global jihad and rise up against Israel and purge it.
Australian here. This was a small component of a larger protest that the leaders of the protest tried to shut down and remove from the demonstration. It was a small group, and the edits of the demonstration don't show the efforts that were made to expel those people from the demonstration.
I understand that.
May Allah guide my weapons.
I understand you think it's silly.
I do.
But again,
I do think it's
I'm
silly.
responding to your point about how none of this matters, and I disagree with that premise. I do.
Yeah, that guy.
This is how I'm picturing.
He's like,
people that
it's
listen
time.
to that
It's
guy's
time to
podcast.
do a jihad against Israel and all the Jews.
They're not. Yeah, but that wasn't my point.
No,
He's just going to join the rally.
Let's be serious.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, something else to think about is that, like, the people, there are actual government officials and military officials who are currently dehumanizing Palestinians and calling them animals or beastly and things like that, as they literally cut off all the electricity, as they cut off all access to food, fuel, and now the last, like, you know, power plant that was generating electricity that is crucial for hospitals to operate has now ran out of fuel. In essence, now hospitals, anyone who's on a respirator who needs immediate, like, they're running generators to try and make this work until those run out of fuel as well. Like, that is large scale, is systemic power that is currently an occupying force, and that, yes, has to be called out. Anyone who sees footage of people saying horrifying anti-Semitic shit like that is obviously going to say, yes, I'm not on the other side of this. Yes, that's disgusting. It's anti-Semitic. That's horrifying. Yes, but let's contextualize this for 2 seconds so that we can actually talk about who is the aggressor in this conflict and where does the attention always focus on.
Serious. Let's be serious. You're right. I think that conflations, no matter who's doing it, of anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are very dangerous. And I think that saying that, saying anti-Semitism is like fuck the Jews when you're talking specifically at a anti-Israel rally or a pro-Palestine rally is really fucked up.
It's anti-Semitic.
Completely unacceptable. And I don't know what else to say about it other than, yeah, of course I condemn that. That is, I mean, there's always people that try to sneak in little anti-Semitic shit in my chat all the goddamn time. Whenever I'm talking about these stuff, they're like, ooh, why do you think the American media turns a blind eye to this? Maybe because they own it. And I'm like, okay, motherfucker, Jews don't own the media, wasps do, okay? So shut the fuck up. Like, there is always going to be people that try to take advantage of these sorts of things. And ultimately, the reality on the ground is unchanging, and the opinion of our governments are unchanging on what do you call it? The way that we
the Irish, yeah,
turn a blind eye to one side of the atrocities and also completely justify the reaction that the state engages in. But yes, I do think that could lead to. I do think that is anti-Semitic, and that will lead to anti-Semitic sentiment spreading. It is completely unacceptable, and it should never be normalized, and it should be fought against.
That's all I'm trying to do, man.
That is not what that is not what being a defender of Palestine is about.
Right.
That is not what being a defender of the emancipation of all people is about. It's completely ridiculous.
And so here, this is one more. This happened in Brighton, in England.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. What was the question? Either way, thank you very much for your purchase. $5.
There's gonna be. It's like that dude who like. There's some random fucking guy who like Googled swastika and like pointed it at
I'm not
the
showing
fucking.
that one because that one's silly. It's just
No, I know, but my point is this, right? There are always in every fucking in every kind of protest, there are going to be charlatans, clowns. What matters is not necessarily like the BLM protesters that are saying fucking kill all white people. When you find them in a fucking BLM protest, what matters is like the actual action that the state is taking. So that's why I never, for even a singular moment, am ever going to hear the calls of like the ethnic cleansing from like random Kahanas on the ground celebrating Israel's actions against Gaza and be like, wow, this is truly important, because I know that their opinion on the matter is inconsequential.
It's not like this is true.
But
I'm
it's
not
also
making a
policy.
I'm not making like a mountain out of it. I'm just saying that
the official White
it's
House
fucking
press
gross.
briefing walked back the president's statements, saying that he had not
deny that
firsthand seen
there's
photos.
At least there are a lot of people that believe this shit. There are.
Of course, anti-Semitism is certainly a major issue.
And I think it's important to
look at the Republican Party.
Make a good effort to separate the issues.
Yes, I do agree with you, and I do that all the time. But like I said, the reason why I look at this and consider it to be utterly unproductive is because having random charlatans and people who have violent opinions.
Yeah, I mean, these are well-attended rallies.
But I know.
Yeah, and organizers.
But this
of the
does
rally.
not. But this does not reflect upon, again, the situation on the ground. It does not reflect
I'm not saying it does,
on people who are defending.
You know what? I'll say this. I agree.
Okay.
I agree with you.
So
we don't even need to argue about it. I agree.
I have to pee again. God damn it.
Right. I'm getting too defensive. I agree with you.
And I don't know why I'm like why I have to, I don't know why I'm going through each individual protest to be like, this is bad. This is bad.
Right. Well, we just did it with the
what?
With the the genocidal monsters who are calling for the death of,
Yeah, we glanced through it, and my point there wasn't necessarily to be like, this is the opinion of these guys and their moving policy. I know that their opinion doesn't matter because the policy is already set. The policy reflects what they're saying. I even told you they're comfortable saying those things because there's no punishment that I even expect them to withstand for those statements, because I don't care about their statements. I don't care about the public opinion in that regard.
Yeah, like you can see how disgusting Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham's rhetoric and speech is, but there's no fear to them of any kind of consequence to come from that, whereas like every single other person has to carefully craft and tailor anything they say, and if it is even slightly critical of the actions of the Israeli government, then suddenly, that is, you're going to have your party condemn you, everyone's going to label you as an anti-Semite, they may try and destroy your entire political career, they might try and get you fired from your job.
I care more about the actions of governments and what the media is doing. And I think everything that you've shown me thus far is subject to a role reversal that literally is the reality. A role reversal that is actually demonstrably what the media is pumping out.
That's what I agree with, and I've shown both sides, and I just don't understand the insistence that it just doesn't matter because the other side is doing it. It's like, I don't know, man. Here. I mean, this.
For me, yesterday was a victory. As a Palestinian, yesterday was a victory. For freedom fighters in Gaza to break out of a 15-year blockade so successfully under the inhumane genocide from Israel was so beautiful and inspiring to see. It shows us as Palestinians, and it shows the world as us from Palestinians that we will always fight and we will always resist, and we need to celebrate these acts of resistance because this is a success.
Yeah, and again, this
like,
is
so she's saying this is an act of resistance. This is like it's happening while this is like on October 7th or October 8th, right?
Yeah,
that's like a displaced Palestinian woman.
Yeah, so she said the mass murder of civilians is inspiring and beautiful. She said that.
Okay.
And then she also said,
Didn't you originally maintain the position that, like, yeah, displaced Palestinians are going to have they're going to say things that in the heat of the moment are impassioned and oftentimes not empathetic to the civilian casualties on the other side? I mean, it's just that's what
the
you're
point is
watching.
that people see this stuff and it matters. Especially, you know who it really matters to is like, you know, the demons that fucking want to actually kill the Palestinians, because this is like the perfect, you know, ammunition.
Well, don't you feel like you're also serving their purpose then when you endlessly talk about the
First of all, not endlessly talking.
not endlessly,
Three
but like
videos.
showing this and like parading all of this. I think that
well, first of all, it's a political show. We're talking about all this stuff.
I agree.
And you know, I'm just showing what I've seen that bothers me.
I understand.
Does it help the conservative apparatus? I don't think me watching this now. I mean, these videos are all super viral. I didn't dig this out and put it out.
Thank you for
into
the
the
$5
world.
donor.
I know. You know why they're super
Bins.
viral? Because of the things that you
it's
mentioned.
shocking.
Yes. No, the reason why they're super viral is because you're right. It does help present all Palestinians.
I think it's super
and
viral
all
because
of
it's
those
shocking.
who are demanding emancipation for Palestinians in a negative light by appealing to the understandable human emotions of saying, like, these are dead babies. You reflect that and you
Beautiful,
show
inspiring.
you're celebrating dead babies. You think that that's a revolutionary act. It's gross and it's disgusting.
Okay.
Right? So that's the major reason as to why these videos get played all the fucking time, and the role reversal of said videos is reflected as current existing policy in both the United States and also in Israel.
I think
it's so much so that they don't even show in America Israelis who are literally pushing back against the administration and say that the violence is caused directly by the Israeli administration's positions. Like, that's how fucking bloodthirsty we are here in the Western world. It is like the condemnations only work in one direction, and I
Adrian, good to see you.
I have done it over and over and over again, and I will continue to do so if presented with this kind of thing. But the reason why I think this is an unserious or frivolous conversation to be had is because of rallies being conducted, ultimately not yielding any sort of serious results in general, and certainly not on behalf of Palestinians. If you look at the 75 years of brutal occupation.
Right.
Like, and I don't think Palestinians on the ground give a shit either, for the record. Like, they don't, like, this is not going to, if this footage did not exist.
It is going
if this
viral because
rally-
it is shocking, though.
Yes, if this rally did not exist, like, would one singular baby not be obliterated in the Gaza Strip? No. So I don't have a, like, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Or if more, if more rallies existed on the other side of people, because there's tons of counter protesters.
I disagree.
Like, the first footage that you showed were literally counter protesters of a rally where people were talking about solidarity with Palestine. Remember the Kahanas guy who was like, obliterate all the Jews that we like, move past, because I think it's frivolous and inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, because the American government is going to do what it's going to do, and Israel is going to do what it's going to do, regardless of whatever people fucking say on the ground. And that the overarching consensus view on the Palestinian front, due to things like this being,
I wish you just would, like, I think all you would have needed to say is, like, just look at what just happened right now. You said you wanted to compare and contrast really bad takes, in fairness. And the three bad takes that you showed us on one side were all three politicians and lawmakers for the largest military force known to human existence. The others were podcasters and people at rallies. You know, that's the difference here.
Highlighted, and not necessarily the voice of activists who do not say things like this, is already entirely and deliberately on behalf of, like, all Palestinians being terrorists. It's just, this is why I say it's unproductive, because there is no one who is being promoted in mainstream media as, like, a good voice for Palestinian people, and those who do actually say, I condemn the violence, but here is the reality of why this violence occurred.
They weren't all Palestinians that I showed, but listen.
No, I know. But,
I understand.
But you understand what I'm saying,
yeah, I do.
right? Like
I do.
this is a deliberate way in which you look at.
But I also think that this
person or different rallies and you cast a negative light on the entire Palestinian liberation movement.
That's
not
why
saying you're doing that.
That's why it matters. Like this
I know, but
stuff
it's like,
all
but
matters.
it's optics. It's an optics conversation, and in the grand scheme of things, having an optics conversation about like, oh, I can't believe they said this. Look at how violent they are, while simultaneously, you know,
I'm not they. This, you know what I mean? Like I know what you're saying.
Okay, how
but it feels
violent
personal
these
'cause we're
specific
having a
individuals
conversation about
are, but like at a certain point, this doesn't serve any other purpose than, you know, what Ben Shapiro would do, to be like, look at how violent they are, and that is the mechanism of manufacturing consent working in unison. Yes, there are people that say condemnable shit. This does not change my mind on Palestinian emancipation, and it should not change your mind.
No.
If you're watching at home, I know it doesn't change your mind
But
either.
it probably does have an influence on people being more hateful, more dehumanizing to Israelis, and in some extreme cases, anti-Semitic.
Ethan, when you see a video, you're in support of Black Lives Matter.
She says we need to celebrate these acts
you're
of
in
resistance.
support of Black Lives Matter, right? You're in support of Black Lives Matter as a movement in general. You are.
I mean,
I know you are.
Okay.
I mean, come on. When you see videos when right-wingers in America present videos of Black Lives Matter supporters and activists and even leaders saying, you know, that cop died and it was good that that cop died, and they show that and go, look at the situation. These guys are all violent. They all want to fucking kill cops. They all want to kill white people. They show wanton and callous indifference to the death of whites in general. When they show footage like that, does that change your perspective? Do you also think...
I'm so curious.
Not mine, but maybe some's.
Okay, it changes some people's perspectives. Do you think that those videos or the weaponization of those videos is what serves a purpose in changing people's minds, in propagandizing them against Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, it's part of why it matters.
No, do you think it's the singular act itself, or is it the propagandizing of and the weaponization of those videos that serve a purpose in you know, creating anti BLM sentiment?
I don't think it's, you know, BLM.
I have such a good world. I'm just doing a video right now on a completely different topic, separate from this, but I have such a good real world example. It's something I didn't know, but I just found out. So a lot of you probably know of the original Orson Welles War of the Worlds broadcast, in which he gave a reading of War of the Worlds that was just so great because he's such an amazing actor that a lot of people actually legitimately believed it and started to think that aliens were invading them in their homes. And that's a story that we've all heard and known, and you probably already know that one, right? What I didn't know is that there were some people who did legitimately think the War of the Worlds broadcast was a real radio broadcast signaling that there were aliens invading. There were some, but the reason that it became a phenomenon was that the press, after it had happened, reported on it becoming a major thing, and that's what blew up into a huge story. That one has lost the time, and it was at that point that suddenly they were seen as, holy shit, there's a danger to the general public, because apparently millions and millions of Americans thought aliens were coming into their backyards to invade them, when that never happened. Orson Welles lied to them, and it was actually just a handful, like a smaller amount of people who legitimately believed it, and then tons and tons and tons of people believed in it as a much bigger story after the press ran with it and amplified it. And that's when it became one of those things where, oh, is this something that we need to actually start taking very seriously?
You're talking about different situations. I don't even know.
What do you mean?
I don't know if it's comparable. I mean, we're talking
Palestinian
about
emancipation.
I mean, they're like, hold on. And BLM, we're talking about like riots. We're talking about like breaking into buildings. In Israel, we're talking about murdering 1,500 people, decapitating babies, burning families alive, that she called beautiful. We need to celebrate. So the severity of it is not the same.
Okay. Black Lives Matter is an emancipatory movement to stop the disproportionate killing and targeting and stop the disproportionate killing and targeting of black people in the hands of the police. Right? Under a white supremacist criminal justice system, these issues have gone unnoticed for far too long. Palestinian liberation is identical as far as the struggle goes, which is extended beyond the treatment of black people under a white supremacist police force, but literally is a legalized apartheid structure. Okay? So these are both emancipatory causes. Do you think that when people bring up random footage of like Black Lives Matter activists or even the Hamas thing, the BLM, the BLM Chicago account that's like unaffiliated with anything, posting a photo of the Hamas parachuters, right? And saying this is Palestinian emancipation. Do you think that when people do that, they're doing that because they genuinely think like, oh, we need to clean up our message here?
Phil
us BLM supporters, we need to
Phil
clean up our message here.
Thank you very much for the 5 gifted subs. Very generous of you.
I think
5, you
I
just
think
got a
it's
sub
more about,
from
like,
Phil Aesthetics. Give a big thank you
influencing
for that.
not just the people who are there, but also the people who constantly see this kind of language.
Deeply appreciated, though.
And think that that's the language of like of the resistance, or this is the way that we should.
Phil is
be
just fine.
talking
All right,
about
Phil.
this.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.
So the more
Very generous
positive
of you.
situation in that regard, if you were faced with that, if you were faced with
Clean up your room.
someone showing you this kind of footage, and you as a supporter of Black Lives Matter, you would say, yeah, this is silly, this is ridiculous, right? Like, yeah, it's bad, but also this is not what is reflective of the actual modus operandi of the movement in and of itself, and their cause is just.
I think, I don't know if we're getting lost in the woods a little bit, because
He's not going to debunk the baby beheading thing. I think he would open up an entirely
accurate representation of
separate
like, the
discussion
people
that
as
he
a
clearly
whole.
doesn't want to entertain
It
right
just
now.
bothered me, and I wanted to call it out.
Okay, but
And it's a
you
difficult one to
understand
have
why,
because it could still be true.
It, can
It just
be,
hasn't
not
been
saying you're doing
confirmed.
this, but it can be used to effectively propagandize and neuter
But it's been
any
walked
kind of
back
emancipatory.
by numerous people.
Okay, good. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're not doing this because you do, I think, I know you are empathetic to Palestinians and their plight. However, many people in the media that are significantly more powerful and more influential than you and I combined times 10 are doing exactly what you just showed me, showing footage of this round the clock, and effectively radicalizing people against the Palestinians and the Palestinian position when an endless bombing campaign has currently taken the lives of more than 500 children, more than 500 children in Gaza. This is why I find this conversation to be utterly and entirely unproductive, especially because we are an independent media outlet in comparison to the sea of mainstream media conversations that are being had on exactly this issue. I understand where you're coming from when you are afraid, as a Jew in America, about the possible anti-Semitic, the rise in anti-Semitism. Of course, your co-host, myself, and many other people I love are we are seen as Muslim regardless of what our position is, and Islamophobia is also ever present. So I am sympathetic to your fears on multiple different avenues. However, this is why I think it's a conversation that's being had all over the media. I don't know why we spend any additional time on it here, because it does have a intentional or unintentional way of casting a negative light on the emancipatory struggle of Palestinians, especially in the West.
Right, but I mean, it still is happening though. So like, should we not show it because it makes them look bad?
His point is that everyone is showing it.
I think it's fine to show it and say this. I think it's unacceptable, and I think optically speaking, this is not something that should happen.
But
also do
basically what you're saying.
But
if I
also do it in the
understand
framework of like recognizing the overwhelming amount of media in the opposite direction that is the regular everyday
and just to be
media
clear,
coverage.
we did spend the first 2.5 hours doing just that.
No, I know. I know. But we talked more so about the real issues on the ground in the first 2.5 hours. Now we're talking about the optics. Yeah. Now we're talking about the optics and how certain things are received in the West. And if we're going to have a conversation about like media narratives or how certain things are received in the West and optics, then that's an entirely different conversation that is devoid of
All right. Listen, I see what you're saying.
What's going on the ground.
I think yet again, basically in agreement. There's one more thing. I know this is fucking insane. This is the longest episode ever. It's already 3.5 hours, so thank you for staying.
Half the crew's left.
Are you serious?
I'm exaggerating.
I didn't even
Some people had to go.
There's one more thing that, you know, as is a dual citizen Israeli, as someone who knows a lot of Israelis, and by the way, knows all the horrible things that the IDF does. After I saw you say this, I was quite shocked because I hadn't heard that. And in my research, looking for it,
I have to pee.
Go ahead, I'll wait for you.
Can you play that?
No, well, I'll wait for you. There wasn't much else.
The partnering of the instance that you just showed, on top of the
That's why
gag
my
order,
pausing
on
came
top
in
of
handy.
the treatment of institutionalized people in general, and the sexual violence that they are subjected to, that is considered legal in both America and everywhere else, due to a lack of getting adequate coverage to their issues.
Your point is that, and the
On top
incarcerated
of
are abused.
On top of that, and on top of that, one thing that is not technically sexual violence, but coercion of a different magnitude is for example, gay Palestinians being blackmailed specifically to become sources of information.
I haven't read about that.
And things of that nature that still would be factored under that. You're right, though. I should have chosen my words more carefully.
Right, and listen.
And there is, I will present you more information on that as well.
Well, what does that mean?
Like I'll
look into
come
it.
back with more information for you.
And again, like everything you're super credible. It was just this one thing. It just rubbed me a little bit wrong. And like, listen, that's it. But I appreciate that you.
No, you're.
Thanks.
I think that's fair.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. That was basically that was, of all the things you said, that was the one thing that I was like,
no tears. I'm going to be taking a break.
I don't know about that. So I'm glad that we talked about that. The other things I don't know if you want to talk about was my spat with your friends, which at this point I'm like just fully apologetic towards them, after talking about it and really, I don't know. I got more of an emotional insight.
No, it's understandable
from you today that impacted me, and even though, I felt provoked. I understand why, if in my opinion, they're not using the most delicate language because they're fucking angry and pissed. You know what I mean? And so like, I need to be more charitable, I think, and less reactive because their pain is valid and I need to acknowledge that and, be more forgiving of less delicate language.
Well, I'll get back to you with more information on the documentation on rapes under incarceration.
Okay.
Because there are more studies.
Okay.
That. I mean, there is more.
Well, great. I mean, that'll be nice.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah. Specifically, this.
Can I make one point on that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Rape under incarceration in a carceral structure in general is very difficult to study and document. The fact that doing so inside of an apartheid structure makes it even more difficult to document. And even then, there are still obviously witness testimonies that you can rely on in situations like this. I mean, okay, well, I'll.
Like the care thing was the only thing I could find.
There's definitely more. Ethan, that's.
Well, then
it's an inevitability that it happens. Basically, it's not like
I'm not
you're
saying it doesn't
not
happen,
correct,
bro. I'm just saying, like, I just want to know more. I just want a reliable source, and I just don't know what this is.
It's almost all on testimonials from Palestinian women, and that's, you know, it's not exactly considered to be.
I'm not even finding the accusations though.
Okay.
Like I'm not even calling women liars or something. I want to make that clear. Like I'm not saying like they're lying. I can't even find the accusations to read. I mean, this is the only one, and it doesn't even say who's talking or who they're quoting or anything. I mean,
Okay.
it's just nothing. But like I'm open to the conversation, of course, and if that's what's happening, I think it does need to be talked about. That's all.
You like men as well, not just women.
No,
Okay.
I understand that men can also be raped and sexually assaulted. You know, of course. I mean, that's something that I did read, which I consider just kind of sporadic and nebulous, because it was just hard to pin down a systemic thing that I could point to. Was just like, yeah, dudes were being like, you know, penetrated with foreign objects. I mean, obviously that is also rape.
Yes.
Horrible.
Okay, good.
Torture.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, in short, in closing, this dude, Mohammed, I mean, again, I apologize too. And Frogan, I apologize too. Is that how you say it?
Morgan Frogan. Frogan is a foot soldier and has been
I hate that,
has
you
been
know?
a longtime fan of yours. You know, there are going to be other foot soldiers who are also of a Muslim background that may have said things that would upset you.
Right.
And that's something to consider when, you know, reacting to them.
You're right. I think the takeaway.
That's what I was trying to say when on the phone.
Less reactive, more charitable, and understanding. You know, their reasonable and warranted anger at Israel.
Oh my God.
That's it. That's everything.
All right, perfect. We did it. We solved the conflict.
I thought, like, first of all,
nice.
I mean,
someone had to.
We talked about a lot of shit, and I do feel like I was genuinely influenced by some stuff that you had shared.
Are you moving towards wrapping up the show?
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about the Swifties?
Is he like, please?
It feels like it's maybe too late now.
Dan wants to talk about the Swiftie movie.
Well, I promise it's not about me. It's about our audience. They were promised an Eras movie review.
Go ahead.
It sucked. It sucked fucking dick. Fuck Taylor Swift.
I honestly, I'd say of the full 3 hours, because I think we watched nearly the entire thing. The most important moment, without question, was having H3's audience finally learn about Shireen, the journalist who was killed by Israeli forces, who then denied that they had killed her. And seeing the obvious visceral reaction that Hasan got to just bringing it up, and then the subsequent funeral procession that they couldn't even have or grieve, because again the people who were trying to grieve for that moment were beaten on the streets. I remember seeing that live and just being absolutely horrified, and you can tell that just a lot of people don't get this kind of news or information. So yes, that's really important. That's really, really big to see something like that come out.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback, because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. This show is produced by amazing people like you, and if you want to help us out, please consider donating over at patreon.com/theserfs. The show is made possible thanks to Amazing Fletch, Anna Loves Riley, Ariane McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Doug Cady, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Lamidia Panza, Matthew Scarborough, Multimondi, Omni, Peanut Butter Blondie, Political Pappy, Quiet 185, Rachel K, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Ruby K, Sir Nickus, Spinach Monster, Stellar Vision, Sebastian Demmel, TechTink, TrevBot.exe, Words Greenwood, and not to mention all of the amazing and fabulous people you now see before you.